Sonic the Hedgehog. One of the greatest and most attractive video games. Okay, I'm not starting the fucking video like that.
Sonic the Hedgehog, Sperm the Hedgehog. And for the sequels, Sonic Adventure, Sperm Adventure.
I don't think it should come as any surprise to viewers of my channel that I'm a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan. I guess I haven't really talked about it much, but I've had this Metal Sonic PFP on YouTube since I was probably like 13, and I'd be surprised if I have any videos on my channel where I don't use Sonic music in some way, shape, or form. I can't really help it, to be honest. I just love eating shit. Heroes and Mega Collection on PS2 were two of the first 3 games I ever played, which probably explains a lot about me, my personality, and my general taste in games. Even more horrifying than that is that the other game was Wrath of Cortex. Jeez, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm glad I came out a Sonic fan. You seen the average Crash Bandicoot fan? I think playing Sonic games as a kid can either completely fuck up your taste in video games or in some cases improve it. Sure, there are definitely the kind that literally only play Sonic games, and that's no good. I think you should definitely expand your horizons a little bit beyond that. But I think if you grow up playing them, it can allow you to appreciate things about games that are a little jank, or maybe even really jank, but still have good ideas behind them. Even the Sonic games that are the closest thing the franchise has to universally well-regarded are these kinda unconventional platformers that are a little hard to get used to playing, especially if you're used to shit like Mario or Kirby or something. I'm not saying they're fucking EVE Online levels of unapproachable or anything, but getting a hold of Sonic's physics in these games are really difficult for a lot of people who didn't grow up with them, and thus they comfortably write them off as dog shit. Which is really sad because as someone who does have a hold on them, there aren't really many platformers that flow as well as Sonic 3 and Knuckles does for me. But would I even like Sonic games if I didn't grow up on them? It's kinda hard to say. It takes a lot of time and work to love your first Sonic game, and honestly, it might not even be worth it for some people. I think one of the strongest things about the series is the replayability factor, since replaying them over and over again is an extremely satisfying experience, especially when you're 6 and the only other game you have is, fucking Wrath of Cortex. But what's there to keep a new player fascinated? It's easy to point out all the non-gameplay related things there are to love about the series. The unparalleled soundtracks, the charming character design and art direction, and honestly most importantly to me, the unique and dreamlike environments the stages often bring in pretty much every Sonic game that isn't named Frontiers. But picture this, right? Someone's trying to get into the franchise and they play whatever game, and they spend 30 minutes on a Werehog stage, or they get lost in mad space, or they get forcibly circumcised in Metropolis Zone. And then they hop on Twitter and some 14-year-old who changed his PFP to some render of Sonic from Frontiers informs them that they actually only disliked their experience because Aaron Handsome told them to. It becomes pretty easy to see why a lot of people disregard all the cool shit in the franchise when you think about that worryingly common perspective. For most people, the energy spent to learn how to play a Sonic game would probably be better spent learning a different game with unconventional controls that speaks to them more, or like learning a fighting game or something, I don't know, getting a job. But that's other people. Me, again, I grew up on the games, and I don't mean to jerk myself off or anything, but I could probably beat Sonic Adventure 1 with my hair tied behind my back. I typically allow myself to be a lot more patient and learn a Sonic game's mechanics, because it's Sonic. I like Sonic. Even if our relationship is a little abusive, I'll never stop gassing up the Sonic games that I see as the best, because at their peak, I genuinely think they're some of the most fun games out there. They're also almost always really interesting games to talk about, since for such a huge franchise, they always make such bizarre decisions with it. Would you rather watch a video about how Super Mario 3D World translates the 2D Mario level structure to 3D? Or would you want to watch a video about how Sonic 06 sucked utterly baffling amounts of cock, but also had some cool ideas in it? Don't answer that, stupid, because the correct answer is the latter. That being said, some Sonic games, especially the more recent ones, feel like they don't really know what they want to do anymore and are constantly focused on trying to win people over that will never truly be convinced. Sure, Colors and Generations are the most agreeable and polished Sonic games with the least amount of quote-unquote flaws, but is there anything really stand out or original about them? Like, Sonic Team is never going to win over the IGN guys who said that all Sonic fans just want to fuck Big the Cat, so why even bother trying? The most memorable Sonic experiences, and the one that create the most Sonic fans, will always be the ones that feel the most confident and uncompromised. Like the developers weren't trying to appeal to anyone or anything, but their own desire to make something that kicks fucking ass. And if it ends up being a functional video game, that's just a bonus. Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers is a Sonic the Hedgehog fan game released in 2024 by a small team of Sonic fans known as Kart Crew. They specifically describe their game on their website as a technical kart racer, capitalized like a proper noun for some reason. I think it's fucking awesome, but it's a really polarizing game among the people who have heard about it and played it. It feels like nearly everyone is in either one of two camps with this game. That's either Ring Racers is the greatest work of art to ever grace a computer monitor and God Emperor Kart Crew can do no wrong, or that Ring Racers is a plague wrought from the darkest recesses of hell to scourge everything good about its predecessor, and that Kart Crew, like, killed their grandma or something, I don't know. At least that's what it feels like, but I guess internet discussion is just where nuance goes to die. Just getting this out of the way, I'm definitely much more closer to one side of that spectrum than the other. This game is one of my favorite games ever made, and I probably have an embarrassing amount of hours on it, but either way, I don't really like how discussion surrounding it goes. Honestly, I don't really like how discussion surrounding most fan works go, and especially not of the blue hedgehog variety, so I thought I'd make a video talking about it and detailing my personal experiences with the game, as well as its predecessor SRP2 Kart, and why Ring Racers is my favorite kart racer of all time. But also talking about why this game definitely isn't for everybody. I recognize that I can't convert everyone to the Ring Racers cult, and to be honest, I don't really want to. Oh, and also, this is fucking obligatory at this point, but don't take anything I say in this video as gospel, since it's mostly just my opinion. There's this trend online nowadays where fans of certain franchises will get really insecure if you say you like a fan game more than an official product. And I really just don't get it. Don't be scared, okay? Ring Racers is not a replacement for Sonic Cross Worlds, Mario Kart World, or whatever other game your favorite billion-dollar franchise has pumped out recently. It's not even a replacement for SRP2 Kart. Ring Racers is Ring Racers. So it's okay, little Timmy. Sega isn't going to go out of business, Sonic Frontiers 2 is still going to come out, and the franchise will continue to take steps in the right direction. Now learn to form your own opinions, or else I'm going to go fuck your mom. So, what exactly makes Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers, or DUR for short, so controversial to so many people? Well, I'll get to it. Relax, jeez. I think the obvious starting point to talking about this game, which is where every video I've seen tends to start, is the lineage that this game follows. I'm sure seasoned Ring Racers heads are rolling their eyes at having to hear about this again, but the context in which this game was created is both important and an interesting story. I'll try to keep it brief. First, we need to talk about Sonic Robo Blast 2, a name you might have heard of. Developed by Sonic Team Jr., this is a 3D platformer Sonic fan game that is old as balls. Like, we're talking technically older than Sonic Adventure here. It's been through many different forms over the past 25 or so years and passed through many different pairs of hands, and will probably continue to do so for the next 25 years. They're like the cockroaches of the Sonic fan game community. Like in a good way. They're like really talented cockroaches that you don't want to like use your bug spray on. SRB2, or as I like to call it, SRB2, attempts to replicate the classic Genesis trilogy, both in aesthetic and gameplay structure. You go through zones consisting of 2 acts and a boss. The levels are these big, sprawling playgrounds. There's multiple playable characters who sometimes have branching pathways through levels. The newer versions have slope physics and the M word, and the levels all retain that subtle surrealism that classic Sonic levels have. SRB2 kind of feels like what maybe a 3D Sonic game would look like if it was released on the Saturn in between 3 and Knuckles and Adventure. And didn't look dog shit like Extreme did. Maybe Sonic did have a rough transition to 3D. I could see myself doing a video focused on SRB2 in the future, so I'll leave my full thoughts for that. But this is just generally a very competently made game that holds up very well. Even more impressive when you learn that it's a whole entire 3D Sonic game that's actually a mod of Doom.
Trick or treat, Sonic!
Trick.
Bye, Sonic!
With a big fat asterisk next to that. Specifically, it's built on top of a modified version of Doom Legacy, which is a Source Engine port of the original Doom. I always see people in the SRB2 community saying you shouldn't call it a mod of Doom, and while it technically isn't, I feel like the average person isn't gonna know or care about the difference, but I guess it is an important distinction to make. So, thanks to being built on top of the Doom engine, Serb 2 is easily customizable and boasts a ridiculous amount of mods. Custom levels, custom characters, custom game types, and even some that turn the game into a whole entire different game unto itself. Just like how a first-person shooter was converted into a 3D platformer. Again, look, the asterisk is on the screen, please don't write a comment about how I'm wrong. A mod of Serb 2 Final Demo, and later Serb 2 2.0, would be released sometime in the 2000s by Chaos064 that would turn the game into a racing game. See, we're getting there, stay with me. It was called Serb 2 Riders, and it obviously took heavy inspiration from Sonic Riders, which probably makes a bit more sense than making it into a kart racer.
Sonic Riders, there's two different ones. Sperm Riders and Dick Riders.
I love this mod's version of Metal City, the first level from Riders, because they were just putting anything on these billboards. Remember people used to draw like this? It's so awesome. I unironically love it so much. It's kind of soul. I don't really know why the Linux Penguin's fat ass is here though. Yes, I know his name is Tux, but like, I never got the tits. Why does he have like defined moves? So weird. Go back to Tux Kart and stay there, you freak. Anyways, Serb 2 Riders might look a little rudimentary, and that's kinda cause it is, but it seemed like a fairly popular mod in the Serb 2 community. It was apparently so accurate to Sonic Riders that Chaos Zero would catch some shit on his Serb 2 wiki user page about how the game was too similar to the then recent Sonic Riders. This dude's Sonic Master told him that he needs to remix the music so there's still a reason to buy the Sonic Riders soundtrack. I honestly can't fathom giving a shit about this. Are people really concerned about this kind of stuff back in the day? Did like Gilvasunner and Super get hate comments when they started posting VGM to YouTube? I don't know, that's just a lame thing to get mad about. But what's important here is the other game modes included with Serb 2 Riders. There was Extra Races, which was just on-foot races that were strikingly similar to the race mode from base Serb 2, and a Mario Kart mode. Much like the main mode was for Sonic Riders, this was pretty much just Mario Kart 64 gameplay adapted into the Serb 2 engine. They didn't get super creative with the concept in this early stage, and that's fine because it's just novel enough to have Mario Kart in Serb 2, but all the items were literally just Mario Kart items. None of the racetracks were themed after Sonic stuff. It was all like Mario Circuit, Pipe Speedway, Peach's Castle, DK Cavern, Battleship Halberd, and what was that last one? It really didn't matter at this point, since it was still a pretty novel concept. Like, a mod of an FPS that turns it into a 3D platformer got a mod on top of a mod that turns it into two whole racing games. A kart racer and whatever the hell subgenre you'd give to Sonic Riders. But it wasn't the first mod to turn Serb 2 into a racing game. J-Man Kart was released in 2007, and it doesn't have any connection to Ring Racers whatsoever. Barely any of Kart Crew had even played it, so I'm not going to talk about it. I have to say though, very inspired roster. Eventually a mod of the Mario Kart mode of Serb 2 Riders would be released in 2011 called Dude Kart, created by Dude64, which added a bunch of maps that even let you drift for the first time. Many members of the community would come to help out with this project and eventually form Kart Crew. They would eventually create their very own mod separate from Serb 2 Riders, called Super Sonic Roboblast 2 Kart Z, which is just a horrible name. This mod would have a bunch of stages and be pretty popular, but also eventually kind of fade into obscurity until late 2018, when the comparatively compactly named Sonic Roboblast 2 Kart would release, which is probably the one you've heard of. That was a pretty abridged history lesson, since the goal of this video isn't to be a documentary, but I think it's still some pretty important context for why these games are the way that they are. It has about a decade and a half of history at this point, and a lot of decisions make more sense when you consider that. If you want a more detailed history of the development of this game, check out Serb 2 Kart the documentary by Arcade Striker. It's pretty interesting if you want to learn more, and it even includes interviews with a bunch of Kart Crew members. So, Sonic Roboblast 2 Kart, huh? Still a pretty clunky name. The fact that I needed about 2 pages worth of script to even explain why it's called that should tell you that. Despite this, Serb 2 Kart blew up, completely blowing past its target demographic. Before 2018, mods of Serb 2 were only really played by, you know, fans of Serb 2. And Serb 2 really isn't for anybody. Again, it's a fan-made 3D Sonic platformer that controls like an FPS. It's decently popular, and most Sonic fans have at least heard of it, but it's probably not as popular as it should be, so it's kind of insane that Kart managed to get as popular as it did. It was a big hit on YouTube in particular, with several videos made by people with a lot more freaking subscribers than me, especially from people who typically wouldn't enjoy this kind of thing. What, do you think Vinny Vinesauce would play a Sonic fan game under normal circumstances? I mean, I don't know, I don't really watch him that much.
Sonic Utopia. It's the best 3D Sonic game ever made. And
Okay, buddy, that's enough out of you. Serb 2 Kart was an obvious, insane technical feat to the Serb 2 in-crowd, but I think the appeal to other people comes from the fact that it's not quite Mario Kart, but it's similar enough where people don't feel like they're outside of their comfort zone. The game retains pretty much every mechanic you can think of, but they're all slightly different in some way. Let's take drifting for example. In Mario Kart, drifts typically aren't super committal. You initiate a drift, but your speed doesn't really change while you're charging it. In Serb 2 Kart, this is different. Drift boosts are a lot stronger, but to mitigate this, you slow down slightly while you charge one. It's kinda cool because it makes you actually have to think when you want to drift, or when you simply just want to turn. You actually have to start a drift a few seconds earlier than you would in other games, which can trip some people up. Serb 2 Kart also adds a secret third option to the drifting dynamic called slip tiding. If you get a boost of some kind and tap the drift button, your turning becomes precise as if you were drifting, but you don't lose any momentum. Also, if you hold a drift going off a ramp in this game, you'll still have the drift charge when you reach the ground, which is kind of this game's equivalent to tricking found in Mario Kart Wii Onward. It just kind of requires a bit more setup than pressing a button. This whole drifting slowing you down thing is a bit hard to get used to for a lot of people, but it's something you easily become acquainted with after playing a few matches. Shit like slip tiding and drift storage are cool for people who want to fuck around with it and get really good, but really aren't at all necessary to have a good time with the game. It's, again, kind of like Mario Kart's advanced techniques like snaking or shock dodging or ledge hogging or whatever. You really don't have to learn them to play the game. In Rayman, instead of collecting lums, he should be collecting plums. The items are another way in which Serb 2 Kart appears to be a lot like Mario Kart, since all the items have analogs but made to be more Sonic-y. Sneakers are this game's equivalent to mushrooms, and they kind of feel a bit more powerful than a mushroom, because, you know, Sonic's faster than Mario, allegedly. Rocket Sneakers, the shit from Sonic Chaos on the Game Gear, are similar to golden mushrooms. Invincibility is the same shit as Starmen. Heudoros, which are the little ghosts from Sandopolis Zone, are the equivalent to booze. The Thunder Shields is the boombox thing, you get the gist. Eggman monitors are a pretty interesting item. They're meant to be the game's equivalent to fake item boxes, which they're already doing a better job at, because, you know, they actually look like item boxes. When you pick one up, instead of just getting hit, you have a 5-second timer counting down until you explode. In mods of Serb 2 Kart and later base game ring racers, you can actually pass on the Eggman box to other racers by bumping into them, and it works almost exactly like Mario Kart Wii's Thundercloud, except you don't get it from a normal item box, making it more of a punishment that you can narrowly avoid if you're in the right position, which I definitely think it feels a lot more fair. Bananas are in this game, and, you know, I always thought they just kind of ran out of ideas for theming every item around Sonic stuff, and just took a Mario Kart item and stole its free will and hoped no one would notice. But apparently the bananas show up in 2 whole Sonic games, and not even obscure ones. In Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the banana has a power-up in competition mode that you can place on the ground and people will slip on it. It also makes an appearance in Sonic Unleashed, where you can buy it in Autobot, and you can eat it in order to get the Hungry Hungry Hedgehog achievement. But, I think they were referencing Sonic 3. Bananas are slightly different in this game, since dragging them behind you actually slows you down quite substantially, making this a worse defensive item, which is cool. It makes them more commonly used to actually hit people rather than just a shield for red shells. Orbonauts and Jaws are this game's equivalent to green shells and red shells respectively, each taking after Badniks from the Genesis games. Although I call them spike balls and torpedoes because that's what they are and I'm not a fucking nerd. Getting hit in this game can screw you over a lot worse than in Mario Kart. Spike balls are always moving super fast and are a genuine threat, unlike green shells, and torpedoes are actually a little worse than red shells. I always felt like green shells were underpowered compared to red shells, but Serb 2 Kart strikes a much nicer balance between the two. The way this is accomplished is that torpedoes don't fall along the track at all, instead going directly towards whoever they're locked onto. This means that in order to hit somebody with a torpedo, they have to be in your line of sight, or else they'll hit a wall or something. And yeah, spike balls hit like a truck. But perhaps the most iconic item from Serb 2 Kart is the SPB, which stands for First Place Bomb. Also hailing from Sonic 3 Competition Mode, this is the game's equivalent to the Blue Shell. However, it too sets itself apart from its Mario Kart equivalent in a way that also makes it feel a lot more engaging. When you're in first place, the SPB will make a really loud, threatening noise and then start chasing you. However, if you're moving at top speed, it actually can't hit you. If you slow down in any way, whether that be by bumping a wall, falling off the edge, hitting a trap, or getting nailed with a projectile, it gets closer and explodes. You can go through an entire race front running, just having this thing trail behind you, and it gets really stressful, but if you get hit by it, it usually feels like it was your fault. Usually. You can also, of course, use a Thunder Shield to get rid of it. Now, do all of these changes, which I'm mostly touting as improvements, make Serb 2 Kart a better game than every Mario Kart? No, not really, because even with its solid gameplay, Serb 2 Kart is still kind of just a framework of a game. For example, single player in this game is a complete afterthought. This game does not have CPU, so if you don't have an internet connection, you're looking at time trials and fucking nothing else. Roster-wise, Serb 2 Kart also leaves a little bit to be desired. The playable characters without any add-ons loaded are Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Eggman, and Metal Sonic. That's it. The game comes with a WAD that you can load in for extra characters, and I never really understood why this wasn't just automatically loaded. You might expect me to be a Metal Sonic main in this game, but no, I actually tend to play various other characters. Haruko, Klonoa, Chrono, The Kid, Mojo Jojo, and characters from various other franchises that you will most likely see in my comment section followed by the word mentioned. Hold on, I think some of you are only half watching this on your second monitor. Let me get your attention. Smiling Friends, Deltarune, Toho, Cave Story, Yume Nikki, Hollow Knight, Guilty Gear. Guys, come on, I need that viewer retention up. That being said though, Serb 2 Kart's map selection is genuinely fantastic. Chow Race from SA2, classic. Grand Metropolis from Sonic Heroes, classic. Pleasure Castle from SA1, classic. They got the Midnight Channel from that game I haven't played. Aurora Atoll, Sunbeam Paradise, Blue Mountain Zone, Petroleum Refinery, Eggman's Nightclub. I could go on, and I will. One of the most popular maps in the game is Daytona Speedway Zone, of course referencing Daytona, USA. However, the layout doesn't actually resemble any map from the game, and instead carries over the layout from Pipe Speedway from Kart Z, but Sega-fied. A lot of the maps in this game feel very iconic just because they're inspired choices of music, too, that kind of just pull from random sources. Tracks like Mega Block Castle, Ancient Tomb, and Canyon Rush use music from Lawtail, which I had never heard of before playing Serb 2 Kart. Kind of seems to be like a Maple Story-esque MMO, but man, does it have a good soundtrack. Apparently, based on the 3 songs that are in Serb 2 Kart. And of course, if I'm talking about the music used in Kart, it would be remiss of me to not mention the main menu theme, Fluvial Beat Deposits by Simon Stollenhag. Again, it's not original to this game, it comes from an album called Soundshock 2 FM Funk Terror, but it's such a perfect main theme for the game, and I never get sick of hearing it, even when I'm downloading a frankly stupid amount of add-ons. Great album, by the way. I would highly recommend checking out the Soundshock trilogy. It's great if you like music that's quirky or playful, I guess. What I'm trying to say is, thanks to its roots in the Doom engine, again, the asterisk is on screen, you can't get mad at me, Serb 2 Kart is heavily moddable, and that's where this game truly shines, or at the very least, where people get hooked. Look at this thumbnail. Now look at this thumbnail. And now look at this one. Do you know what they have in common? There aren't any fucking Sonic characters. You can find mods of basically every character under the sun, and even creating your own is very easy, since you don't have to do any coding whatsoever. It's basically just drawing 8 awesome angles of the same character. Tons of people straight up put their OCs in Serb 2 Kart and post them on the message board, as if anyone's gonna download some random person's OCs. Fucking newsflash, buddy. Master Chief is in this game. Solid Snake is in this game. No one's playing as your stupid furry OC. But, I made my furry OC in this game, so if any servers want to host that, I wouldn't mind. It's for this reason that Serb 2 Kart feels less like a Sonic Roboblast 2 kart racer, or even really a Sonic kart racer, and more like a Mario Kart game that you can mod characters into. Mugen Kart, basically. Trust me, I'm not the first person to make this comparison, and fans of the game will probably roll their eyes at me saying this, but it's true, let's not kid ourselves. Some of my fondest memories with this game were picking out characters with my friends for the build we had going. This game had my friend group by the balls for years, and I wonder if it would be as easy of a sale if it wasn't for the ease of access to modding it. Oh, what's that? You don't want to play Sonic Kart with us? Well, guess what? I just put the real car you drive in real life into the game. Now what? It's kind of funny, Serb 2 Kart had somewhat of a boshy effect in my friend circle, where I'm pretty sure some of them didn't even know Sonic Roboblast 2 was a game that existed, but they definitely knew Kart. I'm sure they're not alone in this either. The fact that the game is almost never referred to by its full title kind of abstracts it from everything. To some people, the Serb 2 part is probably just some shit thrown on the front of the title for fun. Never mind the fact that the title screen still says Sonic Roboblast 2 in big, bold letters. I know tons of people who loved Serb 2 Kart and they don't even give a shit about Sonic in the slightest. And sure, the game definitely has its considerable differences from the average Mario Kart game, but those are small enough that casual audiences could just turn their brain off every couple months and pretend they were playing a Mario Kart game that you could mod Donkey Kong into. At most, Serb 2 Kart's a little more chaotic since items are so much stronger. Getting owned in Serb 2 Kart compilations were really popular for a while. However, it was clear that at some point, maybe even all along, Kart Crew didn't see the game as living up to its full potential. Their vision for the game was something vastly different from the Mario Kart formula, and soon they would realize it. Throughout the coming years, Serb 2 Kart would receive small updates periodically. A few maps would be changed here and there would be small bug fixes, the limit to how many add-ons you could have loaded was increased, they added hole punching for people who are too brain dead to learn how to port forward, like me. But ultimately, Serb 2 Kart never really had its core gameplay fucked with in any way. The community did that instead. This is because behind the scenes, they were working on Serb 2 Kart version 2, which was supposed to shake up the game in major ways. From what I can tell, the first public mention of version 2 was in July of 2019 in an interview with Sonic Retro, and the main mechanic they wanted to introduce was rings from, Sonic Hedgehog. Yeah, back then, I'm not gonna lie, they kind of did a shitty job of explaining how this mechanic would work. They talked in this forum post in the same month about how rings are a consumable that can be slurped down as long as you hold the item button without holding an item, and it gives you a little boost. And then if you take damage, you lose 5 rings, and if you get bumped while not having any rings, you go into ring sting, and if you take damage while not having any rings, you go into ring debt. And if you're getting chased by a first place one, you can't pick up any rings. Yeah, when you put it like that, Ring seemed like a very stupid addition that sounds like it will just have made the game more troublesome to play rather than more fun. Like, what do you mean ring debt? You fucking serious? What do I have to invest in ring stocks? Do you need to start building a ring 401k? Are we gonna have ring taxes that are going to be used to fund ring genocides in the ring Middle East? Are they gonna add ring racism? Of course, this was all just the first impression, but the people I was talking to about it when it first dropped, being my immediate friend circle, really weren't happy with the direction Serb 2 Kart was headed in. Possibly because the direction it was going in wasn't very clear, thanks to the very early beta footage, though I personally still held out hope. Teasers of Serb 2 Kart version 2 would be drip-fed to the community throughout the coming years, and I thought it looked pretty good, I don't know. They would post a couple videos to YouTube and a whole host of GIFs in a Dev League channel on the Discord. Taking some time out of my day every week or so to check the Discord for more V2 news and teasers was one of my favorite things to do. I kinda got obsessed with this update the more they showed off of it. There'd be some new tracks shown off, new characters teased, and the core gameplay continued to be iterated on until at some point, they must have Ship of Theseus themselves into realizing they could no longer call this Serb 2 Kart. Instead, it must be a new game. This was no longer Serb 2 Kart. This was Serb 3 Kart. Yeah, or Ring Racers, it's probably a better name.
Hang up your sneakers because Dr. Robotnik and his ex-enemies are going go-karting. Use the untapped potential of rings to supercharge your vehicle across more than 200 crazy courses. With over 20 unique items and some of the hottest moves on this side of the floating island, this is racing at the next level. Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers. Out now for home computers everywhere. For free.
Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers was shadow dropped in the Kart Crew Discord on April 24th, 2024 after 6 years of development, and initially when they revealed that Serb 2 Kart version 2 would now be a whole game, I was kind of confused, not gonna lie. Like, how could they have possibly changed it enough to be considered its own separate game? Like, it's pretty simple, it's just Serb 2 Mario Kart, right? But upon playing it, you realize that there's so much fundamentally different in Ring Racer's mechanical design that it barely even resembles Serb 2 Kart, and especially not Mario Kart. This really isn't the same game anymore, and you can't really go into it playing it like Mario Kart like you could with its predecessor. Ring Racers is a far more complex game, but it's also a much deeper game. It gives you a fuck ton of mechanics to play with and play around, and not a whole lot of wiggle room for fucking up. You can really tell that it's a Robotnik game now and not a Sonic game because the game is kinda evil, but also a lot more attractive too. Not only that, but it wants you to know that the word kart is no longer in the title either. I struggle to even call it a kart racer at this point. Like, it definitely is. You're driving around in go-karts as colorful video game mascots, you drift and little sparks come up, and you pick up items from item boxes, but it builds and iterates upon the formula so much that it almost feels like its own genre. Technical kart racer, I guess. The developers have said that the game takes inspiration from not only the obvious traditional kart racers, but also anti-grav racers like, you know, your F-Zeros and Wipeouts. Fast Racing Neo, remember that shit? They most interestingly say that the game also takes inspiration from fighting games, and in the way that the game is designed, and the way that you learn how to play it and get better, it kinda rings true. The obvious new mechanic in Ring Racers that sets it apart is the one they talked about first, being the rings that you race with. Like they said in the forum post, you can hold a maximum of 20 rings at a time. If you hold the item button when you don't have an item, you consume rings and it gives you a little boost. Though unlike the actual boosts, rings are mostly used for maintaining speed rather than gaining it. You know, like when you're going up slopes, trying to get out of off-road, or if you don't want to slow down while drifting. Its application is confusing because most people see something like this and immediately think of Mario Kart's coins or F-Zero's boost power, but once you actually get a feel for what rings do, they're fantastic for maintaining momentum in a race. And I know you fuckers love your momentum. You lose a couple rings when you take damage, and if you have 0 rings, you take damage when someone bumps into you. Fuck! What the forum post didn't discuss, though, is that rings are way more abundant than you would think. Huge swaths of road are often dedicated to just having a fuck ton of rings. And you get rings every time you go through a checkpoint. There's a bundle of rings item, which is actually a lot more useful than the coin item in Mario Kart. And there are, of course, ring boxes, which replace item boxes temporarily after someone ahead of you grabs them. Ring boxes roll a slot machine, and if you press the button again, you get a fuck ton of rings depending on what you select. It always rolls in the same order, so with a bit of practice, you can pretty much always get like 300 rings every time you get one of these. Since you can only hold 20 rings, you'll start automatically burning through all the other rings you got from the ring box, making you drive really fast. Stringing together multiple ring boxes will make you go even faster. These things can really make you zoom across the track to the point where it feels almost a little unfair, but then you get hit by either an item or a stage obstacle because you're going too fast and you lose all that momentum. Which is kind of a bummer, but it's okay because you'll still have a steady supply of rings being pumped through your bloodstream like Dayquil. When you're not getting diabetic though, which usually only happens in certain situations on certain maps, rings are an incredibly engaging resource that you need to manage carefully. Being at 0 rings or below sucks ass, especially when you have a slope to go up. Your only other option of getting that speed back is spin dashing, another new mechanic which is pretty much like the drifting in place thing for Mario Kart Wii. Oh, and there's also insta-whipping, which is a mechanic the tutorial spends way too much time teaching you about, more on that later. If you're at 0 rings and you don't have an item, you can hold the item button and charge up an insta-whip, which takes a second or two. So, not instant. I think it was instant during development, and they called it that to reference the insta-shield from Sonic 3. I don't know, just don't think about it too hard. When you release it, you spin around and it does damage to the people around you, and it gives you a little invincibility too. See, I never really use this because I'm not a part of Al-Qaeda, but some people's entire gameplay revolves around it, just burning through their rings and going balls deep into a pack of player and releasing their whip. Also, can you believe the shit goes through invincibility? It's kind of incredible how the use of rings in Ring Racers mirrors their use in Sonic games. The point of collecting more than one ring is usually to make it easier to get back on your feet, since if more of them fly out of you when you get hit, it's easier to pick some of them back up. And the point of rings is to maintain speed after losing it. In both games, rings are basically your life insurance. It's not one-to-one or anything, but it's a really neat adaptation of the idea into a racing game format. Rings alone are already kind of a weirdly in-depth mechanic for a game like this, but they're really just one mechanic in a game of many, many mechanics that are all kinda designed like this. It may seem like they're stuck together with toothpicks and used gum at first, but once you learn more about the game, they all interweave with each other in a super satisfying way. Immediately when you start a race in Ring Racers, you don't get the standard 3-2-1 countdown you'd see in Serb 2 Kart. Instead, everyone spawns in this Sonic Riders-esque position area. You can drive around and explore the area around you for a little bit. Some maps will have rings or even item castles to hit people with. That's a new thing in Ring Racers, by the way. Sometimes items will just be lying around, like, here's a spike ball, have fun. Perhaps the best part, though, is that you can shove people into the start line before the race starts, or be shoved yourself, causing you to fall, which makes you unable to move for the first few seconds of the race. It's kinda awesome. Something I like doing sometimes is staying near the front, and then when people try to bump me into the line, I move out of the way. You can totally matador their asses, it's awesome.
I haven't seen Carnival Night in a while.
Do you think they'll know it was staged?
Yes.
However, there's incentive to stay near the start line because whoever crosses first gets first blood, which is a massive boost of speed that will instantly put you in the front, provided you're able to control your kart. But how do you control your speed, you ask? Well, allow me to introduce you to the Slip Tide. Again. Slip tiding received a massive buff in Ring Racers, allowing you to turn a lot more tightly. It went from something that you might use every once in a while in certain situations, to a very central mechanic that will be your main method of controlling your turns at high speeds. Like in Kart, you tap drift while using a boost, and you kick up dust and you get a far tighter turn radius, and you can even now use it with invincibility and grow. Not only that, but you make a really satisfying sound effect when you do it now, and you get a burst of speed after using it, which is officially called a wave dash. Just kind of a dumb name. Doesn't work anything like Melee. Slip tiding is a very important and fun mechanic that I kinda wish was advertised more. For me, it's one of the biggest reasons why Ring Racers feel so unique to play, especially since courses are often designed around it. You'll see a really sharp turn with a boost panel in front of it, and if you don't know the mechanic exists, you'll probably go straight off course. If someone didn't play Kart and didn't fuck around with slip tiding in that game, I'd imagine this is a bit of an unintuitive mechanic to get used to. It's probably only because I played Serb 2 Kart so much that I even learned that slip tiding was a thing. One of my favorite things to do in that game was to use it and tell my friends bitches don't know about the slip tide, because bitches really didn't know about the slip tide. But goddamn does it actually feel good to hit that shit in Ring Racers, and the best part is that it's technically not even a new mechanic, but it's just taking something that was unique about Serb 2 Kart and expanding upon it. Drift storage from Kart is also something that Ring Racers builds off of, with the introduction of triangle dashing. You can hold a drift while going off a ramp, and it'll still be there when you land, just like in Kart, but now that's kinda chump shit. If you release the drift button mid-air, your kart will blast downward and forward at a high speed, and you'll carry momentum onto the ground, which can really help you out for overtaking other people. It's kinda weird though, because moving diagonally downward and forward is a lot more like what wave dashing actually is, so I don't know why this is called triangle dash and the other thing is called wave dashing, but whatever. Shit is so fun to use though. Cinching out first place with an expertly timed tri-dash really feels better than coming into a fucking pussy! Yeah, fuck this game, actually. Tri-dashing works as a faster, but more situational alternative to hard dropping, which is another mechanic added in Ring Racers. If you hit the brake button in midair, you fall to the ground quickly, and you bounce for a second after you do so. It's another way of getting out of the air, which is something you want to be doing a lot since you move more quickly on the ground. It's quite a bit slower since you bounce up a little bit when you land, but it does bounce you in the direction you're looking, so it's still useful for repositioning. It also completely cancels out your upward momentum in any situation, while the tri-dash can be a bit finicky to work with if you're going up really high. If you're fancy, you can even hold a drift off of a ramp, hard drop, and then tri-dash off of the landing bounce. Very few things in this game cancel out your drift. The only thing I can think of is getting hit by an item. Bumping into the wall or other player is totally chill though. You lose a bit of speed obviously, but you can just keep charging the drift so it doesn't even really matter. Even braking a little bit will let you keep your drift, which feels great. There's a lot you can do with Ring Racer's movement, and mastering it makes you feel like you can go literally anywhere, even though you know your ass is just gonna drive straight into a proximity mine. Ring Racers also adds these little trick panels that some maps use that make your kart slowly rise up for a second, and there's a little quick time event to align these disc things. I don't know, it's like a Knuckles Chaotix reference or something. Once you line them up, you can hold one of 4 directions and tap the gas button, and the trick will send you in that direction, sort of like the tricks from Advance 2. Once you do your trick, you can either immediately fast fall, which will cancel out the bounce and instead give you a huge burst of speed akin to a tri-dash, or you can do nothing, and you have this blue aura around you called voltage, which briefly makes your drifts faster, your handling better, your acceleration quicker, and your dick bigger. It will also give you a couple rings, and if you use a blue or rainbow drift while you have voltage, you can release the aura to get a super boost that makes a sound effect that sounds like PACHING! and it's fucking awesome. I love Gunstar Heroes. You can also use a boost while going up to a trick panel, and it'll send you super high, which can be useful for getting to an upper pathway in certain situations. That's just a fucking cool and unique way of doing a shortcut, right? Like, I think that's awesome. The new trick system was definitely a sour spot for some of my friends when it was first revealed, though. You see this, and it's like, what the fuck is this? Am I gonna have to, like, do this on every ramp? What was wrong with the Serb 2 Kart trick system? Which, that last question in particular is a really funny question to ask, since the Serb 2 Kart literally didn't have tricks. A lot of servers would often add mods like Acro Basics, which adds Mario Kart Wii tricking, or Acrobatics, which has this weird gauge you have to line up by holding and releasing the brake button. It was fun for sure, I'd love me some burst tricking, but also, honestly, kind of way less intuitive than Ring Racer's tricking system. Maybe they're just afraid of change, or maybe the pre-release footage made it look annoying, I don't know, but I definitely like this more dynamic take. Besides the admittedly rare boost into a trick panel cut, shortcuts are usually streamlined to these tripwires, which are one of the more controversial additions to the game. Basically, if you're going fast enough, whether that be through the use of an item or rings, you get this blue shit in front of you that Supersonic gets in Adventure 1 when he flies up Perfect Chaos's butthole. I'm sorry, that was really gross. If you don't have this little sonic boom effect and you try going into a tripwire, you'll be launched backwards, but if you do have it, you'll be rewarded with a shortcut or an item capsule, or sometimes even both. Tripwires are almost always in front of shortcuts, as opposed to the classic Mario Kart take a boost through off-road idea, and for the most part, I think they're a positive addition to the game. They stand out a lot, and it prevents shortcuts from appearing like they're part of the main road, which is an issue that would arise a lot when playing modded courses in Serb 2 Kart. It also lets map creators get a bit more creative with how they want to lay out shortcuts. Sometimes they'll just put a capsule with a really strong item in the middle of the road and then put a tripwire in front of it. Fuck it, that counts as a shortcut now, why not? I do think that tripwires are a little unnecessary in some niche instances, either because they're not really substantial enough of cuts to warrant it, or because getting to the tripwire is already hard enough, so blocking it off to people who have an item just feels pointless. Like, if I managed to make it to the top of this shit in Speed Highway, or this girder in Northern District, I feel like you should just give it to me at that point. But I think they're a very important addition, because unlike many kart racers, off-road isn't as much of an issue in ring racers. Sure, you drive slower on off-road, but with the addition of rings and also just the game generally being really fast, you can kind of just plow through off-road. There are several instances in the base game maps where it's straight up faster to just drive right through instead of taking little twisty turns, kind of like in real life. If tripwires didn't exist in this game and shortcuts were instead done with the classic method of being blocked off by off-road, you'd be able to take every shortcut in the game pretty easily from first place, and they wouldn't even really be shortcuts, but rather just the optimal path. The only other option would be to make off-road even more punishing, which would both make the game less interesting, since I think building up enough speed and burning resource to plow through off-road is really fun, but also a lot less forgiving. In Serb 2 Kart, getting spikeballed into the off-road felt like having your balls chopped off with a meat cleaver. You get launched super far, and there's really nothing you could do about it besides slowly crawling your way back to the road. No rings, no respawn, no spin dash, no nothing. Your only hope is if you happen to have been carrying an item with you when you got hit. Ring Racers, though, you can pretty much get right back into the action. It's awesome. The items of Ring Racers are another part of the game that has been completely overhauled. First, every item that was present in Serb 2 Kart has returned, and thanks to new gameplay mechanics introduced, pretty much all of them have multiple use cases. Ring Racers introduced boost stacking, which makes it so that if you use a boost multiple times, then you go really fast, which makes any items that give you boost, especially rocket sneakers, even better. New items feature the other two elemental shields from Sonic 3, which each do a handful of things. The fire shield is like a second take on the golden mushroom. Its boosts aren't as strong as the rocket sneakers, at least from what I can tell, but it's not on a timer and instead has a heat meter in the top left that fills up when you use it and slowly cools down when you aren't. Like a proper shield, you can use it to power through other people's items by holding the boost, and you can pretty much only lose it by getting hit or filling up the meter. Meanwhile, the bubble shield is an unfucking believable item. If you press the button, it gets bigger and hits people around you. If you hold it, you can place the bubble down, which will trap people inside for a few seconds if they drive into it. If you hold the button and up on the control stick, you'll shoot the bubble shield forward. If you hold the item button down on the control stick, you'll shoot yourself forward instead, and you can use that boost to bypass tripwires. And if you fast fall with the bubble shield on you, you'll bounce really far and become one of the most wanted criminals in the Ring Racers community. And if you connect your Wells Fargo account to Ring Racers, the bubble shield will do your taxes for you. Oh, and of course there's the fucking garden top. Yeah, the garden top from Marble Garden Zone. That's an item. When you use it, your control scheme shifts to something similar to the Swerve Star from Kirby Air Ride, where you have a really good drift but you can't steer. You can use it again to send it forward or back like a normal item, Or you can try holding drift on a boost panel and gain an uncontrollable amount of speed. Hell, even item boxes themselves are a bit more interesting because they're actually not random. When you pick one up, the roulette will roll for a long amount of time, and it's up to you to stop it by pressing the item button on whatever item you want from it. It's a bit distracting to get used to, but once you can perceive what each item looks like as a blur in your peripheral vision, you should be good to go. It's just fucking easy. All in all, this sounds like a lot of mechanics to keep track of, doesn't it? Well, that's because it is. I didn't even get into tethering, which is sort of like a stat-dependent version of Mario Kart slipstreaming. The E-brake changes the flow of gravity so they don't fall off the map. There's wall running, or I guess wall driving, and of course every character has their own stats designated by a grid. Characters on the left are good at acceleration, characters on the right have good top speed, characters on the top have good handling, and characters on the bottom are heavier. This was a thing in Serb 2 Kart, of course, but there are so many little mechanics in ring racers that are affected by stats that it makes every stat block have their own little niche, like top left guys getting more from rings, top right guys getting more from boost stacking, bottom left guys getting more from drift boosts, etc, etc. You might think that this would be the game I play Metal Sonic in, but no, I'm actually a Tikal guy in this one. She's in the center, and those guys can use pretty much every mechanic in the game thanks to their balanced stats. Plus, when I win with Metal Sonic, he's like... And that's not really as fun as memorable as Tikal's voice lines.
Hello there, friend. Forgive me, I'm sorry. How can I make you understand? I'm sorry. The fighting's over. Harmony's restored, and life goes on.
Plus, I don't know, she's cute. We like Tikal, right? Tikal's cool. Sorry, old friend, at least your sprite looks pretty cool. You know, speaking of the roster, it's definitely a fan games roster, you know? When you open up the game for the first time, you start it with a selection of 9 racers, all taken from the pre-adventure Sonic games, and each are the center of their stat class. Through playing through the Grand Prix modes of Ring Racers and doing a bunch of other weird bullshit, you unlock new characters in this Air Ride-esque challenges screen. Again, they're taken from Air Ride, that's how you know they have their priorities straight. The game is a total Unlock Bros heaven in this regard, and unlike Serb 2 Kart, many will simply play this game for the single player and not even touch the online mode. The issue for some is that the roster is, really weird. Like, they have pretty much every classic Sonic character you could ever want. Bark, Bean, Fang, Honey, Mighty Ray, and even badniks like Motobug, Caterpillar, Reds from Hidden Palace Zone and Sonic 2, and Gutbuster from Techno Tower and Knuckles Chaotix. What the fuck? Shockingly, they couldn't find any voice lines for Gutbuster from Knuckles Chaotix, so they used Caleb City voice lines for it? Okay, sure, whatever. Heavy Magician shows up as a playable character from Sonic Mania, which is kind of a weird choice until you realize they added a special mechanic for her where you transform into a random character every lap, so you have to adapt to the weird stat blocks the game makes you play. There's some cool Sega characters, like ones you would expect, like Ai or Knights or Echo the Dolphin, and even some deeper cuts like Pulse Man, Dynamite Blowjob, Popful Mail, and Zip from Segapede. A Genesis game that would have taken place in the Sonic universe that was cancelled because Sega higher-ups wanted the developers to work on the Ooze instead. Ugh, look how that turned out. And in Ring Racers, again, they couldn't get any voice lines for him, so they of course turned to the next best thing for the character, which is Kokichi Oma from Danganronpa V3.
It's my turn now. I got you exactly where I wanted.
I actually ken Kokichi. Who do you ken? Nagito?
The game also, of course, has all the Chaotix present. You know, Espio, Charmy, Mighty, Heavy, Bomb, and Vector. Man. Yeah, no Vector the Crocodile in this game, along with some other admittedly strange omissions like Gamma, Omega, and Tangle from the IDW comics, which wouldn't be that glaring if they didn't at the same time add both Whisper and Surge from the same comics. It's genuinely a pretty confusing roster if you look at it from the Smash Bros.-esque representation angle that every video game ever must be looked at for some reason. But it's so weird to me because people talk about them forgetting to add Vector the Crocodile like it's one of the game's biggest flaws. Like, I get it, man. I like Vector and Gamma and all those other characters, but I think people are forgetting to use their brain and think about why this roster isn't complete. I believe members of Kart Crew have spoken out saying that characters would only be made during development of the game whenever the art team wanted to, and that it wasn't a super huge priority. Think of it less as a roster that one person decided on, and more like a small in-group of people who make mods for the game whenever they have free time. A lot of the core Ring Racers art team were people lifted from the modding scene of Serb 2 Kart, so it kinda makes sense. That's why you have a Sonic racing game without Vector, but with some girl from Idolmaster. Because no one on Kart Crew cared enough about Vector to get him in on time, and because Chenky just really likes Idolmaster. Does it even count as Sega? Probably not. Who cares? They earned it at this point. I'm sure they definitely could have added a few more missing characters, but their two options were to either take attention away from mechanics and map development, or just delay the game by who knows how much longer. And fuck off with that. I already waited 6 years for this shit. Plus, the game is just as, if not more, easy to mod than Serb 2 Kart, and every Sonic character you could possibly want has already been modded in. I never even see anyone playing as Vector on the modded servers, so I guess he's not that important, you fucking fakers. Everyone just plays as Honey or Cream because they're sheep.
Do a video on this? Why? The game doesn't have Vice in it. Why would I make a video about it?
Just fucking download a mod, man! The game also has followers which fly around you while you're driving, which don't really do anything from a gameplay side of things, but they are really cute. They even make a little noise if you look at another racer with your reverse camera, which is kind of a strange way to do horns, but the item button basically always has a use, so I don't know. I'm kind of a normie when it comes to these. I always just pick a Chow as my follower, even on modded servers, because Chow are awesome, and I don't know, Takal having one follower around feels right. It's even in our signpost. Plus, most servers are on a random map instead of voting for some reason, so they barely give me enough time to pick a character, much less a follower. The followers are really cool though. The game has a wide variety of niche Sonic references for those who are into them. If you're a Badnik head, then this game is definitely for you. I mean, it is Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers, not that pussy Sonic's. There's even references to other Sega franchises in this game. You ever wanted the cactus from Monkey Billiards and Super Monkey Ball 2 to follow you around? Well, you can do that. And even better than that, there's a Sonic fan games category. Yeah, this is how you really separate the wheat from the chaff. Can you really call yourself a Sonic freak if you don't know what this is from? That's Flicky fucking Turncoat, bitch. DX. Yeah, this isn't like the I wanna be the guy video. You're not gonna call me a tourist on the comment section this time. Also, can we talk about the character select screen in this game real quick? I think that's one of the design choices that's something I don't really agree with. So, in Serb 2 Kart, by default, you had this scrolling horizontal list of characters, which is pretty similar to the multiplayer character select in the original Serb 2. It worked in Serb 2 because there wasn't a whole lot of characters to choose from because there's like 6 base game characters, and not an insane amount of mods like either of the racing games, because Serb 2 characters are a lot more work to develop. But in Serb 2 Kart, you can have up to 256 character slots on a server at one time, and most servers you play on fill that up pretty convincingly. So you'd have to go through every single character one by one just to see all of them, and that's pretty inconvenient. Luckily, I usually played on custom builds like Serb 2 Kart Galaxy, which implemented this grid system that laid all the characters out nicely like a great big Mugen roster. It was super easy to find a character now, you just look for their icon and bam, start playing. So by the time Ring Racers came out, I was kind of expecting something like that, and it is something like that, but not really. Characters in Ring Racers are laid out in a grid, sure, but they're organized by stat block, which does make sense, especially if you're playing vanilla. The roster takes a weird shape here, and there's some missing spaces, but that's okay. Stat blocks matter a lot more in this game, so it's whatever. The issue, however, is that if a character shares a stat block with another, only one character gets shown, and you have to flip through a menu to find the others, as if Emerald is like an alternate costume for Knuckles or something. This kind of becomes a nightmare in modded servers, where you have to do the flipping through stat blocks thing several times just to find out where Mienshao is. I like that Pokemon a lot. It makes sense if you're just looking for, you know, a stat block, but that's not what you're doing in a modded server, especially with Ring Racer's character limit of 1,024 characters, and how some servers skip voting entirely so you get no time in between races to find a character. I think what would be cool is like if there was an option to switch between the default character select and one that's laid out more like Serb 2 Kart Galaxy, but I also recognize I don't know shit about this kind of programming, and something like this could either take a few days to implement or like months. Obviously, this is a very specific and stupid nitpick, but I've never really seen anyone talk about this, and I need to use my soapbox or something. While editing this video, I randomly learned about Radio Racers, which is a special build of Ring Racers that's compatible with online matches, similar to Serb 2 Kart Galaxy. It has a lot of accessibility features, which is really cool, but more importantly, a specific build of Radio Racers I downloaded, namely Superstar X Aliens build, adds a list view for characters, which is basically exactly what I was talking about. So go download that, I guess. I think for me, the real crowning jewel of DRRR, above the characters and maybe even mechanics, are the tracks and art direction. Serb 2 Kart art style was novel, but outside of a few modded track packs like RA Extended, never really wowed me. Kart was built off of version 2.1 of Serb 2, but Ring Racers built off Serb 2 2.2, which is a pretty important distinction. 2.2 is one of the most substantial updates the game has ever received. It's the update that drastically redesigned every level, added slope physics, and heavily overhauled the visuals. Working with 2.2 has allowed the art team to spread their wings and work with a far superior color palette. Durara has a lot more visual effects and flair, but most important of all is that they added the color purple to the game, which was absent in Kart. It wasn't actually absent, but it just looked kinda bad. Nearly every single track is bursting with so much life, and it's especially easy to tell in the Serb 2 Kart maps that got overhauls. Northern District was in Serb 2 Kart, and it didn't really look bad necessarily, but the new color palette and seemingly larger art team really makes it stand out as a beautiful looking track. I can't stress enough how much I love the addition of purple in this game, and the yellow of the streetlights make for a really nice contrast. Look at this skybox, it looks fucking awesome. Serb 2 Kart's Northern District is definitely at nighttime, but I can't really tell whether Ring Racers is at sunset or sunrise, and I kinda love that. Now that I'm really looking at the map, I love little details, like the mannequins in the windows that look like Sonic characters, or the empty diner booths, or the rain that's probably fucking up the bitrate of the video right now, but it's worth it because it looks so pretty. The drawbridge set piece near the finish line is amazing. You have two options when you get here. Your first option is to take the jump normally, which is good fun, but you can also drive up the side, which is a bit slower, and pick yourself up a proximity mine, one of the most powerful trap items in the game. Actually, that's not true. There's a third option, where if you're going fast enough off the ramp, you can land on this girder that the crane is lifting up, and skip this lower section entirely. It's crazy because I'm glazing the fuck out of this map, but it's probably not even in my top 20. You can really tell certain maps that they were leaning hard into Sega's mid-1990s aesthetics. You know, stuff like Knuckles Chaotix and Nights into Dreams with their dreamlike atmospheres. To me, it's like the perfect aesthetic for the franchise. Oh yeah, I showed a Sonic the Screensaver image just now. I bet you like that art, don't you? Yeah, we both watched the same Cybershell video 8 years ago. You wanna see something cool though? Don't wanna be wrong, Joypolis Zone, what a fucking track. Named after the real-life arcade that Sega has operated in Japan since the 90s, and visually inspired by, for those who don't know, promotional art from the Sega Saturn era by Naota Oshima that was only ever publicly released in a Sonic-themed Windows screensaver program. It's such a beautiful looking map with its vibrant pinks and purples and every other fucking color of the rainbow. It feels like Joypolis Zone, just like the art it's based on, is trying to use every single color our puny human eyes can process without exploding. And yet it also manages to be a pretty readable racetrack. I love that parts of this map are pretty much directly taken from the artwork, what with the big elevator at the start and the iconic Knuckles bung screen that everyone knows about. The racing lines on Joypolis are super acrobatic and will have you performing tricks chained into hoops chained into other tricks, really putting all this game's movement mechanics to use. There are shortcuts on this map that I didn't even know existed until writing this script, and it gives you 200 rings! That's a lot of rings. This was one of the maps Kart Crew first previewed on their YouTube channel on Christmas Day 2021, and this was probably the point in which I knew Ring Racer is going to be something truly special. This is the kind of map that'll get you shot dead between the eyebrows for not voting for it in public lobbies. And I'll be the one hiding on the rooftop with a sniper rifle, thank you very much. I love this game's commitment to celebrating every corner of the Sonic franchise. Well, okay, actually, admittedly, fans of home console Sonic games that came out after Adventure 2 might have gotten a little hoed on this one. You get a decent Unleashed map, and that's about it, but a hefty majority of levels from the original 4 Sonic games are in this thing, and they're represented pretty well. A little annoyingly well. For a lot of these maps, they integrate the main mechanic or feel of the original level, so if a level is fun in the original game, then it's probably really fun in Ring Racers, but when you get to shit like Spring Yard Zone, you'll probably want to chop your balls off with a meat cleaver. That is the second time I've said that in this video. And don't even get me fucking started on Carnival Night Zone. Oh my god, what were they thinking? The map is filled with spikes everywhere, balloons that spring you upward and fuck up your turns, pinball bumpers that fuck you up even more, cycle hazards that you need to slow down and not take damage, underwater sections, and at some parts complete failure to convey where you're supposed to go. It's such an unfun map that never gets picked in public servers, and if it does, then server members often vote to skip it. Part of me questions why something like this is even in the game, and the other eviler and darker side of me kinda respects it. You will never find a map this outrageously unfun in anything other than Ring Racers, and you can tell by how it's designed that it was no accident. Kart Crew, they were fucking giggling and kicking their feet under their desk while they were designing this course. Labyrinth Zone's pretty fun though. One of the more popular maps in this game is Speed Highway. This is a sprint map, which means a map that doesn't loop around. I always call them Mount Warriors around my friends and they instantly know what I'm talking about. Speed Highway is a very faithful recreation of the level from Sonic Adventure. You'll be taken through various bits of level design, like that bell section, or the bit with the construction thingy that swings you upward, and there's even the running down the building bit at the end. Speed Highway even has upper paths that you don't need items to get to, it's purely just based around good positioning and situational awareness. It's almost like it's a Sonic game. Except it isn't, it's a Robotnik game. And then the fucking Mad Lads did it again with City Escape, which admittedly is a little less impressive than Speed Highway, considering it's a lot more linear. But man, if it isn't just a fucking cool map that once again works in a lot of the original's platforming sections elegantly into a racetrack. My favorite bit is that on the final stretch of the map, there's a free first place bomb capsule that someone will almost definitely pick up, which is a cute reference to the gun truck. Actually, my actual favorite bit in this level is that the position area is the fucking helicopter that Sonic jumps out of. That's awesome. Emerald Coast is also here as one of the first maps in the game, and though its layout doesn't go as crazy as the other two, I have to appreciate how fucking gorgeous it looks. I am absolutely Mario Wii U-ing over the water here. I just love the concept of converting non-racing game level design into a racetrack. Okay, I'm gonna bring up a modded course here, so there's a bit of a sidetrack. I went through this entire script and realized I barely talk about mods, even though playing new custom tracks is like one of my favorite things about Ring Racers. So I'm just gonna shove it here because I don't know how else to structure videos. In Diggle's Track Delve by Diggle, they made a Sen's Fortress Zone based on the area from Dark Souls, fucking Prepare to Die edition, which is such a batshit idea that works way better than you'd think. Sure, it's a challenging map because the area in Dark Souls is challenging, but I was blown away by how closely it matches the original level design. It's so awesome. And it just manages to be a fun map, which is always a bonus. While I'm on the topic of modded courses, don't laugh at me, I like the Pizza Tower pack, Toppin' Tumblers by Team Atelier. You can find the toppins from the game in each map and they give you rings, which is cool. And each level has a unique title card, which is a really cute idea. I wish more servers ran custom maps more often. I'll see servers with a fuck ton of character mods and like no maps to speak of. It's so boring, I turn my nose up and then play on them anyways. The character mods are cool though. I'm not gonna go through every single one of them I like, but one standout one is King Dedede's Drift Deluxe by Ben Dedede. It adds a bunch of Kirby characters and their spriting is absolutely beautiful, like easily on par with the vanilla game's characters. I really like this pack, and it should be like an instant ad for any Ring Racer server. It does change the UI a lot though, and I think that's in character for Dedede, but I kind of wish there was a version without it. I feel kind of evil for saying this, since there's so much effort put into every facet of this mod, but like, I don't know, man, I just want to, I want to play on the next level, not with power, you know? I don't know, I'm sorry, I'll go back to the base game maps now. Regal Ruin. Oh my fucking god, Regal Ruin from Sonic R, by the way, is another amazing track. Not only will you be listening to Back in Time, which already puts this track in like the higher tier, but it's also another very faithful recreation of the level design from Sonic R. I love how wide open this map is. Like, they included a bunch of random shit off to the side that basically is never viable to take, but I have to respect the gall. There are shortcuts on this map that I have literally never taken, but it always makes me wonder if I should try taking them over other shortcuts, and I never do. Kart Crew, I know you're watching this video, one of you is, at least. In 2.5, this map better be a 4-lapper, or else I'm going to be really, really angry. And you won't like me when I'm angry. For Advance fans, there's Hot Crater, and it's awesome. For Rush fans, there's Water Palace and Leaf Forest, and they're alright. For Rush Adventure fans, who are definitely the strongest link in the handheld Sonic fan hierarchy.
I'm thinking he about to play Sonic. Yo, who's Johnny, bro? Who is that? Sonic don't even know who that is. Look how he pointing at him. Sonic and Johnny, yo, industry plant of doom, bro. He was never there. What are you doing?
You ain't trying to play that Johnny sauce?
What? There's Sky, Babylon, Blizzard Peaks, and Pirate Ship, which are all bangers. There's a Sonic 3D Blast map, which sucks ass, and an older in-development version of that same 3D Blast map that's a lot more fun. There's Isolated Island from Chaotix, which rules. There's Green Hills Zone, plural, from Sonic 2 on the Game Gear. There's the SPB Cup, which is an entire Grand Prix Cup consisting of the 5 multiplayer stages from Sonic 3. It's a really neat idea. Most of them are kind of boring to play on, though. Balloon Park is interesting because when I started the game, it was one of my least favorite maps in the game. Thanks to this elephant wall followed by this funnel, which, if they were in any other racer, would be 2 baffling track design decisions one after another. But since it's ring racers, you have a ridiculous amount of control over your handling and velocity, so you can handle shit like this quickly and efficiently once you learn the course. The game tries something like this again with the Phantom Ruby Cup, where all maps are based off the Sonic Mania special stages. And again, it's a fun idea, but I never really remember which is which, so I just never end up picking any of them. Also, since Sonic Mania only has one special stage theme, like every other Sonic game, whoever was in charge of picking the music for these maps seemed especially desperate. Nightfall Dimension uses this weird, like, Siva Gunner-esque version of the Sonic 3 special stage theme, except it actually turns into the Sonic Hero special stage theme. It's kind of funny, but like, I just don't really want to listen to this. Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, the weird arcade game with Mighty and Ray in it, that is a map on Ring Racers, and it's a pretty fun one to drive on. The fucking Popcorn Workshop, the Sonic Popcorn Machine map, is one of my favorite maps in the game, just because it's a really simple layout, allowing for easy driving, and the music is just like so relaxing. And also, it's a Sonic Popcorn Machine map. How can you not love that? I love popcorn. Kind of amusingly, there's 2 entire cups of these mega maps, like Mega Green Hail or Mega Flying Battery, which initially kind of confused me. They're all based on existing levels from the Genesis game specifically, and they're all these really simple, small, and flat maps with 5 or more laps. A few of these have their layout lifted pretty directly from Super Mario Kart. I didn't really understand what this meant when I first came across these cups, but upon further reflection, I believe the Mega refers to the Mega Drive. Kinda like how Mario Kart will have the title of a console if the track first debuted on, and the title as like a prefix. Did I just say debuted? Ugh. The implication being that if Ring Racers is a Sega Saturn game, which kinda seems to be like what they're going for, then these mega maps are retro tracks for a theoretical Sonic Kart racer on the Genesis that just does not exist in real life. The maps themselves range from kinda whatever to the biggest piece of dog shit, but I have to respect this kind of a weird alt-history gimmick. Ring Racers, the fan game that exists in the real world, is a sequel to Serb 2 Kart. It even says so on the secret Japanese title screen that you can unlock. But Ring Racers also wants you to believe that it's a game released for the Sega Saturn, which is a sequel to a game for the Genesis. It's kind of a stupid bit, but it's also kind of genius at the same time, and it's funny that they dedicated 10 entire maps to the idea. There's cool maps from other Sega franchises in this shit too. Daytona Speedway from Kart returns once again, and it also got a pretty big visual upgrade. Its layout basically didn't change at all, but I think it's one that fits pretty snugly into Ring Racer's engine. They kind of poured a bunch of shit everywhere though, didn't they? Someone ought to clean that up. Monkey Mall from Monkey Ball Classic. This level's pretty cool and all, but It's kind of hard, and the only shortcut in the entire map is like this thin strip of road, which makes sense for a monkey ball, I guess, but in practice it makes it one of the hardest maps in the game to catch up in. Hanagumi Hall is a Sakura Wars map, and it's absolutely one of the most beautiful looking ones in the game. You're driving in and out of this big mansion with all the Sakura Wars characters I don't know the names of cheering you on. I especially like this outdoors area around the finish line. There's a road just beyond the racetrack with random passerby and their old-timey cars driving by. And how can you call a map with Sakura blossoms anything but beautiful? I'm sorry, I'm a white dude on the internet. I gotta place Japan out sometimes. It's just, you have to forgive me. On the other side of the globe, Las Vegas from popular Sega franchise Nevada is in this game, and it's a really fun and fast sprint map. For some reason, the music that plays here is from some game called Phantasy Star Online, though. Kinda weird, but okay. Pico Park is a map that is in this game, and it's, literally just Baby Park from Double Dash, which I'm sure excites some of you freaks out there who actually like Baby Park. It's 12 laps long in this game thanks to ring racers being really fast. I like that it's themed after the Sega Pico, an obscure console released by Sega in the 90s that's supposed to be for educational games, which is how we got classic games like Tales and the Music Maker and Sonic the Hedgehog Game World. What the? There were Pokemon games on this thing? A Nintendo game on a Sega console? That's some weird shit. Okay, now I'm calling bullshit. I think my favorite is when Ring Racers shows it doesn't just hold a reverence for official Sonic media, but also fellow fan works like I was alluding to in the followers section. The history of Sonic fan games and ROM hacks go back very far, and there are truly some memorable moments featured in a lot of them, and I'm so happy that Kart Crew decided to shine a light on some of these. Dark Fortress Zone is one of the best tracks in the game, not only because it has an incredibly fun layout that heavily emphasizes trick panels, making for some very interesting vertical challenges in a kart racer, but also because it's actually Sonic Megamix's version of Marble Zone. Sonic Mega Mix is a ROM hack anyone is familiar with if they've dipped their toes into the world of Sonic ROM hacks. It was this super huge and ambitious hack with 5 playable characters, complete redesigns of Sonic 1's main 6 zones, and was even at one point shifted in development from the Genesis to the Sega CD, just because they wanted to make an original soundtrack for the game. Which is fucking awesome, by the way. It's composed by Leilani Wilson, who you might know for composing the music in the Freedom Planet games. The team for Mega Mix consisted of what is essentially the Avengers of the Sonic ROM hacking community in 2008, and included Stealth, the very same who would go on to work on Sonic Mania. The sad part is that the final update for the game never got finished, and was instead leaked online in an extremely buggy state. Not only is Dark Fortress in vanilla Ring Racers, but fantastic modded cars have been made out of other levels from the game like Misty Maze and Starry Night Zone. Panic City, from the first cup in the game, is to my surprise a reference to Sonic Utopia, but not the 3D one you might be thinking of. Sonic Utopia is also the name of a separate Sonic fan game, which is a 2D game that came out in 2006, and it's pretty impressive for its time period and definitely deserves a spot on the Ring Racers roster. See, I'm saying roster like it's Smash Bros or something, but I'm talking about the maps instead. There's way more maps in this game than there are characters, despite characters being much easier to make, so I appreciate that Kart Crew's priorities lie here. Bronze Lake Zone uses Hot Wheels Stunt Track Driver 2 music, so I was a little unsure if it was actually from a fan game, but lo and behold, it's from Sonic the Hedgehog Project Metrics, another fan game worked on by Stealth, this time in his own engine. Another level I couldn't immediately identify the origin of was Test Run Zone, but upon closer reflection I realized that it's clearly a reference to literally every fucking 3D Sonic fan game ever made. Azure City and Darkville Castle are taken all the way from fucking Serb 2 Riders, which I already told you about like an hour ago. Final Fall Zone is a level from Sonic XG, which is a fan game that has been changing hands and has been receiving demos and offshoot games and development restarts for the past quarter century, so really the first levels had a lot of staying power. It's just because of the kick-ass theme, which is the remix of the Marvel vs. Capcom 1 credits music. Some of these maps have a bit of a Nepo Baby angle to them, since they're actually references to fan works that were created by members of Kart Crew before they worked on Ring Racers. Best example of this is Avant Garden, another one of my favorites from Ring Racers, which I initially thought to be a Knights map, but it actually originates from Petite Hedgehog, a fan game which was created in 2018 by Chengi, who did a lot of work for the art of Ring Racers. Hard Hat Havoc is honestly kind of an unremarkable stage that I never really liked picking. However, I gained newfound respect for it once I learned it was based off of a Little Big Planet karting custom track that one of the developers, Dr. Tapeworm, made back in 2012. That's so crazy. Nova Shore, Dimension Disaster, and Kodachrome Void all originate from the Sugoi trilogy, a series of map packs for Serb 2 that contain maps from all corners of the community, spearheaded by Teriel Salt, who was credited in Ring Race as one of the 3 primary game designers. Dimension Disaster is awesome because it looks like a Sonic CD special stage and has Yokai Disco as the music. Kodachrome Void has always been one of the best maps in Serb 2 Kart because Shooting Star by Elwood is just such a banger. And Nova Shore isn't the most fun layout in the game, but man, does it have the most pristine vibe imaginable. First of all, just look at it, right? Not only is it probably the best looking map in the game, but it might just be one of my favorite looking areas in any video game. Is that crazy to say? I don't know. I just like the black and the dark purple off-road and walls, the light cyan road, and the orange pinkish skybox with the big Saturn looming over the race course. It all lends itself to this beautiful dreamlike atmosphere, helped in no small part by the music used on this course, which is some super obscure stuff. Convert by Anubis and Dream in Blue Water by Format, both of which can be found on the Mod Archive, a website commonly associated with Demo Scene, which is primarily used by tracker artists to post their music files. I love Convert by Anubis so much, it's such a perfect song for a map like this. And Ring Racers doesn't just rely on references to make some cool maps. Sunday Drive is really pretty, the color palette is just fantastic, and I love the way the snow tanks the bit rates of my recordings and Discord streams. Rumble Ridge is another super fun one that takes place in what seems to be a factory in the middle of a giant canyon, and it uses the best song from Rivals of Aether, so I have to love it. Opulence. Now, this Scrooge McDuck-ass level is a Serb 2 Kart classic, and it looks great here in Ring Racers. Cadillac Cascade is a pretty good playing and looking map, elevated to being one of the best in the game by the music, being Estrada Nova from Sega Rally 2. One of the best maps in the entire game is Robotnik Coaster, which also happens to be the very first map in the first cup. It's this curvy, windy road that really gets you accustomed to the game's steering and drifting right off the bat, and visually it looks fantastic too. It's a really vibrant theme park that's a super nice introduction to the game's visual style. Eggman finally got that fucking theme park he's been trying to make since the first game, and it's like a good future version of Eggman Land from Unleashed. Which makes sense for the plot, since this game is supposed to be that Eggman mellowed out somewhat and decided to go go-karting with Tails and friends. The music is fantastic too, and like many of the most memorable maps in these games, it takes from a pretty obscure and lesser-known source. Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers. Yeah, this time around there's some songs and remixes that are original to Ring Racers. Serb 2 Kart also had some of these, but Ring Racer's selection is, in my opinion, much larger and much better. A wide majority of music is still taken from other sources in this game, but there's definitely a small collection of gems here. Some of my favorites being the Sonic 3 file select remix used in the profile setup menu, the remix of Aqua Lung Zone from Project Metrics used in the test area level, and of course the various places that Ring Racers will just use fluvial beat deposits, the menu music from Serb 2 Kart that they didn't make, as sort of a main motif of the game, showing up in the invincibility music, the map voting music, and the online menu. In some cases there's even completely original songs, and yeah, Robotnik Coaster is one of those. It's a really catchy song that feels like the perfect introduction to the game. There's a reason why the launch trailer uses it. It even has a little Serb 2 Kart sound effects sampled in it, which is just so cute. As of the most recent update, Death Egg Zone is another place where an original song is used, this time a remix of the level's theme from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, with the melody extended because the map is really long. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about Death Egg. Hold on. Alright, where were we? Death Egg Zone is the final course of the last cup of the first page, and it's this brutal 5 to 7 minute gauntlet of the hardest track design the game has to offer. One lap of this thing could be enough to count as a sprint map, but they want you to do 3 laps of this shit. There's spikes, enemies, conveyor belts, gravity flipping, cycle hazards, and so many places to fall off the map. Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare to race on, but it's great as a final boss kind of track. In Grand Prix mode, the CPUs have no idea how to race on it, so it's basically you versus the track the entire time, and it's pretty fun. Which is why it's so funny that you can pick it in online races, and people will just be subjected to it for the next 7 minutes. It's so awesome because I always vote for it because I'm like good at it, and nobody else knows how to race on it, and I just win every time. Another place in this game where originally composed music is used is the Sealed Star stages, which I can't talk about yet since I've barely talked about the single player mode at all. Grand Prix mode is done in a pretty interesting way in this game. Every cup in the game features 5 race courses. To progress in a cup, you need to finish in the top half of each race, and if you don't, You lose a life and have to restart from the beginning of the race, Super Mario Kart style. Every cup also has 2 Prison Break bonus stages, which are kinda like Break the Targets minigames in a kart racer. I really like Prison Break, it's fun and satisfying to smash them open, and sometimes they drop a CD, which unlocks alternate music for certain maps. It's also a pretty clever way of showcasing the battle maps to someone who only plays single player, and... Fuck, I gotta talk about battle mode, okay. Ring Racer's battle mode is an acquired taste within a game that is itself an acquired taste. I was never really a battle mode guy in Mario Kart either, so the one here kinda feels like how people who don't like Ring Racers probably perceive it. Basically, you don't really get knocked out in this battle mode by taking damage from other people. You have bumpers, but you respawn if you lose all of them. That is, of course, unless you get knocked out by someone who has reached a certain number of points, because that makes them win the game. You receive score by hitting people with items that spawn around the map in these big capsules. You can win by getting enough score and knocking someone out, but there's another method of winning, which is by winning overtime, which happens once the timer runs to 0 and the storm starts coming. Like, from Fortnite. But actually, there's a third method where you can collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds and instantly win like you're summoning Exodia. There's also a rock, paper, scissors system based around insta-whipping, bumping into someone, and guarding, which you can do by holding break. There's also the combat UFO that spawns around the arena, which gives you one of a bunch of battle mode exclusive items, like getting Super Tails' Flicky Army of Death, or the Rhythm Badge from Sonic Adventure, which makes your insta-whip actually instant. It's a lot to manage, and I can't tell if it sucks or if I'm just too stupid to play it. Either way, I respect it for what it is, and it's definitely more engaging than Battle Mode in Serb 2 Kart, but I don't know. No matter how fun it can be if you learn how to play it, they kind of made a fatal error with this one, because the normal race mode is just so fun that I never want to play Battle Mode. Maybe it's because unlike race mode, the CPUs can't play it, so there's not really any way to be eased into Battle Mode. You either have to play online where everyone knows how to play, or you just don't play it at all. Servers like Mctopia switch to battle mode every couple of races, and I always see a good handful of people either switching to spectator or straight up leaving the server when it happens. Which is weird because there's a lot of other servers that just do race mode, but whatever. Battle mode is probably the one part of Ring Racers that I don't really feel qualified to talk about, and I probably never will be, but that's okay. I've accepted it, it's okay. Grand Prix mode in Ring Racers has a scoring system that grades you on a couple things, like how you placed in each race, whether or not you used continues, how many prisons you broke in Prison Break, and how many rings you finished each race with. That last one's kinda horseshit though, isn't it? I really don't like that ring bonus is a thing in Grand Prix mode. It encourages you to not spend the rest of your rings at the end of the race, but I don't know why that's something you should be discouraged from. If you transfer that habit over from single player to multiplayer, you're kind of putting a handicap on yourself since the end of the race is kind of the best place to be burning all your rings to 0. I guess I could see it being interesting that playing against bots and playing against people has like different strategies, but also I think that's kind of dumb. To me, it's just a little counterintuitive is all. Point is, if you get a high enough score, you're taken to the special stage at the end of the cup, or sealed stars as they're called in this game. You're on one of 14 tracks, one for each Chaos or Super Emerald. Your task is to chase down this big claw machine thing and crack it open with whatever items you can find. I feel like a broken record here, but this is where Ring Racer's presentation truly shines. It retains the surrealist and dreamlike nature of a lot of the best special stages in the official Sonic games, with the checkerboard roads, seemingly random objects everywhere, and the beautiful color palettes. I already live for shit like this, but what's even better is the music used on these. UFO Catcher and UFO Smasher, used for the Chaos and Super Emerald stages respectively, are fantastic songs that really tie the whole aesthetic together. Tyrant fucking cooked, and the music they composed for this game makes up for the fact that Jartcast is gone and it's never coming back. Actually playing these levels though? Well, listen, I actually really do like these. They engage with Ring Racer's mechanics super closely, and they train you on stuff like maneuvering through difficult terrain and aiming your item shots well. But they're so fucking hard. Falling off the map in these takes one of your lives away, and if you run out of lives, you're kicked out of the Grand Prix entirely. And the game can really bullshit you with some of these deaths sometimes, and each death counts as a continue, so you can very easily miss the S rank. Man, is it so satisfying to get the Emerald though. The entire map turns white and there's this calming music that plays. The game's sound design is so fucking awesome. So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't take these out. They add so much to the game, and I don't even know how or if I'd want them to change to be easier. Oh shit! Marky Jester was always someone I admired the work of, ever since I installed Genesis Plus GX on my Wii's homebrew channel. Considered one of the most respected Sonic ROM hackers, he has this super distinctive style that nails the classic Sonic aesthetic. Although, just describing it as the classic Sonic aesthetic is really doing his work a disservice. Every Marky Jester ROM hack has this super distinctive style to it that lets you instantly identify it as one of his own. Panager Hedgehog is a fucking classic. It's a 1-act long hack that you can beat in like 3 minutes, and sure, it's easy to be wowed by the weirdly fluid set of sprites Pana has, or this neat little ball rolling mechanic, but, you know, personally for me, I just want to sink my face into the shade of pink in the background and start inhaling into my lungs like fumes. And this is the fucking coolest title screen ever! Sometimes in Ring Races I play as Sonic with a purple color palette to pretend Pana is in the game. Jester's Challenge. This one's kind of weird. It's this big maze area that Sonic has to maneuver through, and it's not the most fun thing in the world, but it continues the trend of these ROM hacks being inventive both mechanically and artistically. I really like this little furry character who tells you where to go. I think it's like Marky Jester's Sona or something. It's a nice art style. Also, this is where I heard Dangerous by DJ Ron for the first time, so it gets points for that. Dr. Robotnik's Creature Capture, come on! The second game in the trilogy. This one's also a ROM hack of Sonic 1, but it's barely even a Sonic game at this point. It's a Robotnik game. It has you play as Robotnik running around catching animals in a net and putting them into the prisons you find at the end of levels. It's good fun, but the thing that always stuck out to me in this game was the title screen and menus. They have some really cool visual effects. Looking at this kind of stuff now probably feels like how older techie guys feel about reminiscing on like demo scene and keygen art and all that kind of cool shit. It makes sense considering that seems to be where a lot of core Sonic ROM hacking people got their inspiration from artistically. I'm kinda just assuming there, but it definitely gives off a similar vibe, you know? That leads us back to Sonic 1 Next Level, which was kinda my whole personality when I was 14. The hack was actually cobbled together as a brief side project by Marky Jester, alongside his team of bug finders and gameplay testers, for Sonic Hacking Contest 2015. He couldn't get his Genesis homebrew of Choo Choo Rocket together in time, so he just had to settle for this. Yeah, okay buddy. I managed to win 45% of the awards, the most for any entry in the contest's history, which dates back to 2002. Truly the Expedition 33 of Okay, that makes it sound like shit. It's a short hack where you play through 3 acts and a boss of a single zone, the mysterious Gust Planet Zone. When you start to hack up, you're met with this cool title screen of Sonic running, while the first few seconds of 20 million miles from Earth by space plays in the background. Now, notice how the audio quality is so good here. You might think that this is running on the Sega CD, like the leaked builds of Megamix, but it's actually just straight up the Genesis. You see, Sonic 1 The Next Level isn't really remembered for its level design. It's good, sure, but admittedly not the most fluid feeling thing in the world. The level gimmicks aren't really super fun. There's these anti-gravity switches in Gust Planet Act 1, and those are cool and all, but they definitely slow the pace down a little bit, and this flying bike thing is a slightly faster version of Marble Garden Zone's top, mechanically. However, what is standout about this ROM hack is the technical prowess shown in every facet of it. First of all, the visuals. Sonic 1 The Next Level is a drop-dead gorgeous fucking treat for the eyes. Act 1 has this beautiful dark orange space background that's supposed to be the atmosphere of the Gust planet that the game takes place on. There are these collapsing platforms that just kind of drift off into space instead of falling down like normal platforms, which look amazing. Act 2 takes place in this factory building thing, and I can barely tell what I'm looking at, which is kind of awesome. I especially like these rainbow light bits that change color to the beat of the music. Act 3 has you outside of the factory, and the background here is just this endless parallax of pinkish purple buildings, with a big Saturn looming over everything. It's kind of magical. And of course, the boss of this zone has Reality Distort and Sonic flying around trying to hit this robot thing in hyperspace. The Sonic Hacking Contest entry for this hack advertised it as playing Sonic the Hedgehog on a different planet, and I think that really sells it, whatever the hell that means. And then there's the soundtrack. Oh, the soundtrack. I know literally nothing about this kind of shit, something about mixing standard FM music and higher quality PCM music, but it's not hard to be blown away by almost CD quality sounding stuff coming from the base Genesis. It's just since the picks for this game's soundtrack are just so perfect. Even if you play this ROM hack and hate it, you at least have to admit that Marky Jester is a fantastic DJ. The hack soundtrack is characterized by Genesis conversions of a whole bunch of house, dance, and jungle from the 90s and 2000s. It's Gonna Happen by Wes Clark and Maxine Hardcastle, Take It by Alex Lee, Treacle by Eye Level, the bonus stage music from Sonic Labyrinth. If you never heard this shit before, then don't worry. No one else really had either until the hack dropped. Marky Jester specifically dug for super niche stuff that only he would know about. But a lot of the songs here are mainstays on my playlists, and I wouldn't know about any of them if not for this hack. Marky Jester is a Brit, and you'll notice that almost all the music used in the game is also British. According to his Sonic Retro page, while growing up his stepfather was involved in the rave scene, which let him learn about all this cool club music. The music in this hack is so obscure, in fact, that he had a little thing where he donated $10 to Sonic Retro for each track that people could identify. The fact that something like that worked its way into his ROM hack and managed to fit perfectly is so fucking cool. Multiple people are credited in Sonic 1 Next Level, sure, but aesthetically, and I guess sonically, you can tell it's a very personal project that's super authentic to itself. No one could make something with this kind of unique artistic flair but Marky Jester, and while I don't really think of it whenever I think of what my favorite video games are, it's certainly a fantastic work of art that I still think about a lot. Whenever I meet a fellow Sonic fan, I ask them if they've ever heard of it before, and their answer is almost universally no, which is kinda sad. Now that I mention it, one of the only people I've ever met that's even acknowledged Sonic 1 Next Level's existence without me asking just so happens to be the Emerald Cup in Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers. Gust Planet is easily my favorite map in the game, and about 75% of the reason is just because I feel seen by its inclusion. But it's also just a really fun track. These launcher things from Act 1 show up here, and they can make you go stupidly fast, alongside normal sneaker panels. Visually, it's just as beautiful as you'd expect from a Ring Racer's adaptation of the level to be. It seems to be based on a mix of all three acts, with the blue checkerboard pattern from Act 2, and the skybox being pulled from Act 3. The stage has 3 different songs that can play, being the 3 act themes, which, like, yeah, of course they would do that, but god, it's so fucking awesome. The Ring Racers team really outdid themselves with this one, and I just love it so much, I don't know. Perfect layout, perfect visuals, perfect reference, and it somehow still gets overshadowed in its own cup, but Gust Planet will always be my favorite. There's a lot of things to love about Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers. But you shouldn't go into it expecting it to be the most readily accessible game to do well in. As I'm sure you're well aware now, there are so many mechanics to learn, each vying for a slot on your mental stack, shout out Can. It's really not for everybody, and I don't really blame anyone for being turned off from this game because of all that shit I just listed earlier in the video. However, my issue arises when people get mad at Ring Racers and act like it shouldn't be this way because that's not how kart racers are supposed to be. A lot of critiques I've seen of Ring Racers kinda suck. Not because they're insulting the game I like, trust me, I'm not that insane, but mostly because the thesis ends up being that the game is bad because it's not like some other random game they like. Why isn't Ring Racers more like F-Zero GX? Why isn't Ring Racers more like Sonic Riders? Why isn't it more like Crash Team Racing, Kirby Air Riders, Mario Kart Wii? Why isn't it more like Serb 2 Kart? Ring Racers is not like any of those games, because Ring Racers is not any of those games. Ring Racers is Ring Racers. I don't know why this is so hard. I think part of it was definitely the fact that it was originally planned as a Serb 2 Kart update rather than a sequel. And again, if you go into it expecting more of the pick-up-and-play nature of Serb 2 Kart, well, this game is definitely not that, and a lot of people will feel alienated as a result. I know personally that the amount of people I played Serb 2 Kart with regularly in my immediate friend circle basically split in half in the jump to Ring Racers. People tend to think that all of these mechanics were just haphazardly thrown into the game without any kind of second thought. But if you actually play the game, you'll know that this is so obviously not the case. Nearly every new mechanic in Ring Racers is specifically designed to improve the flow of gameplay, and keep everything feeling fast. There really isn't a single wasted idea in this game that you don't use in basically every race. Besides maybe this stupid Light Snake respawn thing that they tucked behind a button combination in later patches. The issue is getting a new player to feel motivated enough to learn all the new mechanics. Which, yeah, easier said than done. By this point, I'm pretty comfortable using every mechanic correctly when I'm supposed to, but that was after a lot of playtime. Luckily, Ring Racers has a very extensive tutorial that is quite easy to follow along with. When you start the game up, there's this little dialogue between Tails and Eggman talking to you, and you're supposed to be in like Metal Sonic's point of view. Kind of feel a little targeted right now, but whatever. They speak in little Undertale noises and walk you through setting up your controls and audio and video settings and whatnot. It's a really cute way of doing it. I love the art here too, and the way they're written feels very natural for the characters. By the way, a little tip from me is to turn the screen tilting shit off in the video settings. If you don't, it makes the game kind of barfy and it makes you feel like you're more susceptible to getting motion sick from playing without any real benefit to the game. I guess this is the best time to start talking about the game's story, which is basically only elaborated on through this tutorial sequence. I think it takes place after the events of Adventure 2, or maybe Heroes, even though everyone has their classic designs, don't question it. After learning his grandfather was kind of a dickhead and wanted to blow up the world, Eggman has kind of taken a step back and mellowed out. He totally doesn't want to rule the world or turn animals into robots anymore, which is why, like I said earlier, he finally managed to get his non-evil theme park. Instead, he's been working with Tails to create the High Voltage Ring, a brand new power source created by fusing together 80,000 rings. The power source has a lot of potential, but is highly unstable, so to test it out, Eggman and Tails invent the Ring Racer, a special kind of go-kart that's powered by the High Voltage Ring. And yeah, that's the plot. The dialogue in this game kind of feels like it's hinting towards a future story mode, which is also hinted at in certain other places in the game if you know where to look. It's a great hook, so a full-fledged story mode could be really interesting, but I also won't be kicking and screaming and pissing my pants if it never happens. Ring Racers is already a very complete game, heavy in both single-player and multiplayer content, and the developers don't seem entirely eager to add a ton more to it, which I think is pretty fair. They're all adults with jobs and stuff, and this is a free passion project. Still though, really fun dialogue in this tutorial section. I like the idea of Eggman mellowing out, but still kind of being a bastard. Like, it's funny to me that he hangs out with Tails, but Sonic is nowhere to be seen in any of this game's dialogue. He probably still can't stand that dude, which is awesome. Tails' character development over the course of the adventure games actually feels like it happened in this game, and I also really appreciate that. Eggman being less evil and Tails being less of a pussy is the kind of thing that Sonic Team would never actually commit to, and could only exist in something like this. I imagine the plot would revolve around the sealed stars in some way, and based off imagery alone I can tell whatever they had cooking was cool. It's kind of a shame though, because outside of this dialogue, the rest of this tutorial kind of sucks fucking dick and balls. The tutorial is easily the worst thing about Ring Racers, especially on launch. People love bringing this up. I feel like you can't go 3 seconds talking about this game without someone going, "Ooh, but the tutorial is too long." It's a valid criticism, but it's also why I decided to save it until almost the end. Better to have an elephant in the room than to beat a dead horse. That sucks. Plus, it's gotten better over the various updates the game has received, but it is still the first impression you get with the game, and you don't get another first impression. The tutorial is about 50 minutes long if you do everything, and the launch version of the game 2.0, you pretty much had to. Optionally, you could turn around at the very start of the tutorial and you would have a big tunnel to drive down. Dialogue pops up where Tails is like, "Eggman, where the hell are you going?" And Eggman's like, "Oh, don't worry, Tails, I got this." When you get to the teleporter, you're thrust into a race on Test Track Zone, one of the simplest and therefore most cutthroat maps in the game. You're racing in Gear 3, this game's equivalent to 200cc, against CPUs which are on the hardest level, and text appears above you saying that you need to get at least 4th on your first try. If you fail, you're locked out of trying again, and your only options are to either do the 50-minute tutorial, or close the game and go on Twitter and hate on it. Potential Racer? That is just insulting! I don't know, in this launch version, the game has such a weird attitude towards the player for wanting to just get into the game, and I'm a little torn. I kinda respect it, and I see where they're coming from. Maybe Kart Crew were a little scared that people will just drive straight into the multiplayer expecting Serb 2 Kart, not get Serb 2 Kart and then get mad, but I mean, that's kind of unavoidable, and this whole attitude was overcorrecting to me. I feel like it misunderstands how most people get into multiplayer games, because for most people, they just want to tell their friend to get on and then play as fast as possible. I don't consider myself a huge fighting game head, but for a game that's supposed to be a kart racer designed like a fighting game, it's weird that it doesn't follow that principle that nearly all fighting games do. Imagine your friend wants you to get on Third Strike with them, and when you boot Fight Kit up, Elena pops up on your screen. Oh my Ken pops up on your screen and is like, "Hey dude, if you want to play with your friend, you gotta dick around in training mode for an hour, and then beat arcade mode." Oh, what'd you say? You want to skip that? Oh, sure you can. Just head on over there and perform the Daigo parry on your first try. You fucking pussy. This race is obviously not that hard, but you get the point. Granted, I think I'm being a little too harsh on ring racers here, since to be fair, this is only really an issue in the first versions of the game. In the later updates, you'd be given multiple chances to skip the tutorial, both at the very beginning and after certain sections. As of writing, this most recent version of this game, 2.4, which came out in November of 2025, completely reworks the pacing in a way that's probably a lot smoother. It's all nice and good, but again, that bad first impression at launch really left a shitty taste in people's esophagi. I was there when it dropped, the Discord was up in flames, members of Kart Crew were apparently getting death threats, and the game was pulling "I wanna be the guy" numbers on backlog, which is, those aren't good numbers. My possibly controversial opinion is that I don't even really mind the tutorial being this long in theory. As I've discussed, it's a pretty complicated game, and taking a long time to describe the mechanics seems like a pretty good idea, especially if you make a lot of it optional, which again, a lot of it is nowadays, and you can come back to it at any point. My issue with the tutorial, though, is that the things it decides to spend time teaching you feel really disconnected from the actual game you're about to play. The tutorial makes you run through these obstacle courses that don't really resemble any track design in the game. Like, there's this one part where you're placed in between two walls of horizontal springs pointed at each other, and you have to figure out how to not fall into the water, which is a situation you end up in so rarely that I have to question if this really needs to take up 1 or 2 of those 47 minutes. In another section of the tutorial, you're taught about the SPB and how it works, which is already kind of weird since the item basically never shows up in single player, and if you're just starting out, you're probably not going to be in first place in multiplayer lobbies that often. So I have to question why you need to learn about the SPB before you even start a race. The game takes it a step further, though, by making you run from it for like a whole minute or two, which, yeah, it's definitely a thing that will happen to you when you play the game eventually, but I feel like this is something that you could learn naturally by playing the game. And also, it's expecting way too much from someone who is presumably brand new to the game. I think it would be more satisfying for a player to outrun the SPB for the first time in an actual race. The tutorial also spends a lot of time making you hit switches with your insta-whip, and while I do think the insta-whip is something that a tutorial should teach you about, it's not something every player should be using in every race, and spending as much time on it as it does feels very strange. Some people probably went into the game with the expectation that race courses might have, like, switches that you're supposed to hit everywhere, which, to be clear, is not the case. Not a single course in the game has a switch you're supposed to hit. Meanwhile, there's no discussion of triangle dashing, and until 2.4, there wasn't anything on slip tiding either. Two mechanics that are a bit complicated and might be saved for like an advanced mechanics kind of thing, but they're also very crucial to the ring racer's experience. They aren't necessarily things you need to be using to make it to the finish line, but everyone who's good at this game will be using them in virtually every single race. And they're just really fucking fun and satisfying to pull off, and if people knew they existed, then they might be given more motivation to learn the ins and outs of this game. Video game tutorials in general are kind of a touchy subject, I think. It's really hard to design one that both teaches you enough to play the game, while also leaving enough stuff out so the player doesn't get overwhelmed and they have some stuff to learn for themselves. Some people would even argue that the game doesn't need a tutorial, and everything should be explained in auxiliary shit like the manual. I think the way they changed it in 2.4 might just be the best they could have possibly done, although it is still kinda not perfect. Instead of sending you straight into the tutorial, the current version of Ring Racers allows you to pick Tails' way or Eggman's way of starting the game up. With Eggman's way, you skip the tutorial entirely and instead get this little playground to play around in and get used to the controls. And once you're done doing that, you just go straight into the game, unlocking online play and modding immediately, which normally is locked behind completing the first Grand Prix Cup. If you go with Tails' way, you get thrown into the tutorial like normal, although you don't actually have to complete the whole thing at once like you did in versions prior. Instead, you get a quote-unquote structured back-to-basics tutorial that will take around 10 to 20 minutes of your time. Yeah, see, warning you how long the tutorial will take is already a big upgrade. It takes you through the very basics of how to control a ring racer, literally just how driving forward and using rings and stuff works. It definitely still wastes time on useless shit, like teaching you to hold up while your cart isn't moving to move the camera up. Yeah, that's super fucking useful, Kart Crew. I definitely use that on purpose all the time. And it still spends a lot of time on insta-whipping, though that makes a bit more sense now because the mechanic is a lot more focused in 2.4's gameplay, which I'll get into in a second. The important part, though, is that they changed it so that bits of the tutorial is slowly drip-fed to you as you play through the Grand Prix Cups. Once you get to a cup that might use a mechanic, you unlock the bit of the tutorial that explains the mechanic. It seems like a more elegant and less overwhelming way of learning the game, but I don't fucking know. I haven't had to learn how to play Ring Racer since April 24th, 2024. These two options are awesome because one serves the people who really want to sink their teeth into everything the game offers, while the other serves people who just want to hop right in, serve 2-card style. I still think the tutorial itself is a bit awkward, but with this update, it might just be the best way to do this for a game like Ring Racers. If neither of these options sound particularly engaging or whatever, you can always just look at the manual, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know. You can tell they go for like an old school video game manual kind of thing, but the game is so complicated that it looks more like a dust loop page. There's also some pretty good tutorials on YouTube on basic and advanced mechanics. Arcade Strikers might be a little outdated because it came out only a few months after the game, but I think it still holds up and is worth a watch if you need to know how the basic mechanics work. And more recently, L-Dog has started making 102 sort of videos that go deeper into the nuances of certain mechanics, and will teach you stuff even someone with hundreds of hours in the game didn't know about. Not that I speak from experience or anything, I just mean like a hypothetical person who plays Ring Racers that much and didn't know that taking the cannon at the end of Mirage Saloon isn't actually the fastest route. Whatever. Let's talk more about 2.4 actually, because most people who drop this game probably don't even know that it exists. On September 11th, 2025, Kart Crew would release Ring Racers version 2.4 Release Candidate 1, which would be early versions of the new update sent out to the community for mass bug testing. They would release new RCs every couple days for about 2 months before finally releasing the full version of 2.4 in November. This was happening while I was making this video, which leads me to believe that Kart Crew are freaking jerks and hate me. If you're wondering why this video took so long to come out, that's why. And, you know, I have, like, college, and, I've had to, like, pick my boogers, and my butt's really itchy, and I haven't been able to scratch it. And yeah, there's just been a lot on my plate. But what was so huge about 2.4 that required 2 months of release candidates and also about a year and a half of waiting since 2.3? Well, 2.4 really changed the game, literally. They say on the release post that this update was mainly centered around making the game be more approachable and interesting to new players. Which is really funny because I actually think they did a pretty good job of this, but part of their solution was to add even more fucking mechanics to the game. 2.4's biggest new mechanic is amps, which is just an unreasonably cool mechanic. Basically, when you hit someone with an item, or an insta-whip, or any other method of damage, your ring counter starts glowing a bit. The more you hit people, the more your ring counter begins to glow, meaning you have more and more amps stored up. To use all of them, all you have to do is burn yourself down to 0 rings, and you use all of them instantly, giving yourself a massive burst of speed, and depending on how much you had, you gain a brief shield that can power through any damage. It sounds like a small change, but my god does it make the game so much more fun than it already is. In 2.3, all those damaging items didn't really mean anything in larger net games because who really cares about fucking up the race of 1 out of the 15 other players when you're the one who's trying to win? Now, you actually get rewarded by the game for hitting a cool trick shot with a spike ball, putting a trap item in a clever spot, or even insta-whipping, which 2.4 made me finally understand the point of. Now, insta-whipping is this high-risk, high-reward option that you can intentionally go for that gives you an instant burst of speed when you pull it off. Kinda like hitting people in Kirby Air Ride. And you even get amps for bumping into someone who's charging their insta-whip too. Amps are pretty cool since there's a lot of places you can use them once you have them. You can burn them all at the end of the race to land a photo finish, you can use them up after getting knocked into off-road to get right back into the race, or you can use them to super armor through a particularly evil trap placement. The sound and visual effects do a lot of work in making amps feel really good too. It's just a super satisfying mechanic all around that ties all of Ring Racer's mechanical loose ends into a nice little bow. They make the game more engaging, more interesting, and they give the player more options to maintain their speed. I really can't imagine going back to 2.3 purely because of these things, and these should honestly be the selling point for anyone who's interested in getting back into the game. They also added a pretty cool new mechanic called snatching. Basically in 2.3 what would happen a lot of the time is I would place down a trap item on one lap, and then on the next lap, there would like somehow be a trap item right on the exact racing line I take every lap. Like, Who would do such a thing? In 2.4, you no longer take damage from your own items and instead pick them back up if you drive into them. This should probably read as an uncharacteristic change to someone who hates this game and think Kart Crew is out to kill them, because it actually makes it a fair bit easier. However, I think the motive, or even the entire game's philosophy, is to make it deeper rather than harder, and this change does make it a lot deeper since you can do some really cool stuff with repositioning your own items if it's not on anybody's lines the first time you put it down. You can also use your Insta-Whip on other people's trap items, stealing it and making it your item, giving another use to the move. Man, you know, it's kinda justifying having that much use in the tutorial, I don't know. There were a lot of new or updated items in 2.4 too. Toxomisters, the thing from Lava Reef Zone, spew out toxic gas that slows down opponents and drains their rings for a short amount of time. They're broken and I hate them, and they should be nerfed in 2.5. But also having a free amp generator in their corner of the map is pretty cool. Stone sneakers are a trap item that look like fake item drops, and if you pick one up, then this big weight is tied to your cart, slowing you down, but also people take damage from driving into the weight, making it both an offensive and a trap item. Ball hogs, or hog bombs as I've called them since Serb 2 Kart and have refused to waver, are now 7 smaller bombs that you have to lob at people, which you can increase the radius of by shooting multiple at a time. In 2.3, you get this like bundle of rings item that kinda just pays out a small amount of rings when you use it, like the coin from Mario Kart. But in 2.4, it now boosts you forward a little bit, with more boost given depending on where you are in the race. So it's like a boost item for first place that doesn't let them go through shortcuts, which is really cool for correcting a shitty turn or something of the sort. In 2.4, they also made it so if you're further back in the race, it's much easier to go through tripwires, to the point where you can sometimes just go through them with some rings and a slope. They of course also added the ring bail, where you can just tap left bumper and instantly drop to the ground with no lag, burn all of your rings and stored up amps, and just get a fuck huge burst of speed. The issue is that it sets you to negative 20 rings, and you won't be able to pick up rings off the ground anymore. So if you get tapped by literally anything, including getting bumped into by another car, you instantly blow up. This mechanic is so badass. I think any game is made better by just having like this last resort glass cannon fuck you move. By tapping the left bumper at the end of the race, you're essentially pledging to get either first or like 9th. Of course, if you're on single player, this mechanic might as well not exist because you're still punished for not having rings at the end of the race, but whatever. This update also adds EXP, which is like, So essentially, around the maps are these checkpoints that you pass through now, and when you cross one, your EXP goes up proportional to how you're currently placing. So people who are good at staying in the lead get a lot of XP, while people who are in the back get very little. XP is what calculates how many points you get at the end of a race, and more importantly, you get better item odds if you have more XP, so someone who is in first place the entire lap and then falls behind will be more likely to get invincibility or rocket sneakers or a flame shield than someone who has been huffing farts the entire race. This was added to combat bagging, which, like every other kart racer, was an extremely prevalent strategy in Ring Racers 2.3. On release, I kinda hated the idea though, since while it does punish baggers, it also punishes people who already suck ass at the game and are trying to get better, making it needlessly less approachable. But now, I still kinda feel that way, although I see the vision a bit better. Nobody wants to be faulted at the start of the race, fall off like once or twice, and be doomed to get spike balls and torpedoes in last place, with no one around to get hit by them. But also, no one wants to be in first place for the entire first 2 laps, and have it mean fuck all by the end of it. Luckily, Ring Racers does have an option called Frantic Items, which basically just removes EXP's bearing on item odds altogether. But most public servers you'll be playing on will not have that turned on. I will say though that it is very satisfying to come back to first place after getting knocked out of it, and any measure to make front running for most of the race an actual viable, yet still difficult strategy in a kart racer is definitely heavily appreciated. And if you're really that far back in the race, you'll get power items no matter what. I guess it's just weird to me that EXP is what you're graded on in the total race standings. Like, you can nab second place at the end of the race and end up with less points than third or even fourth place, which is just really whack to me. Another 2.4 new feature I'm not huge on is these little birds that spin around your head when you take damage. You would think it's another fun visual effect, but it actually prevents you from picking up rings for a little bit, which is kind of annoying, but maybe that's just a personal gripe, I don't know. It makes taking damage more punishing, but I feel like it was already pretty fucking punishing, especially since the attacker gets rewarded now. All in all though, 2.4 is a fantastic update to Ring Racers in my opinion, that makes the game easier to get into without sacrificing any of the depth the game had, and on the contrary made it even more interesting. especially with all the little things I didn't mention. A lot of items are more readable now, easy difficulty on Grand Prix is redesigned and a lot more fun, there's a new duel mode that's a blast if you only have one other person to play with, and the game has more controller prompt options than just the Sega Saturn controller now. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that, did I? Before now, Ring Racers had button prompts, but only for Sega Saturn controllers. Like, no Xbox, no PlayStation, or even keyboard, but your ass had to learn whatever the fuck the C button was. I get that they were really trying to commit to the aesthetic, but come on, man. I think at some point you're committing to it a little too hard. Can you just tell me what button used my fucking rings? I'm glad they came to their senses on that one. Even after 2.4, I can understand why this game wasn't a smash hit success with everyone everywhere. It's weird, unconventional, complex, maximalist, and not what people expected after its relatively simple and pick up and play predecessor. There's a seemingly asinine amount of mechanics and systems working together at all times in this game, and it can be complete sensory overload at sometimes, especially to a new player. I think you need to know that going into it, or else you'll just play it like Mario Kart and have a miserable time. At the end of the day, though, my one question is this. Shouldn't there be at least one game like this? Like, Ring Racers is truly unlike any other game that exists. Oh, baby, there's a reason for that, you might say, which, like, okay, man, whatever, you really fucking owned me. But there is a very dedicated player base to this game. The public servers aren't active 24/7, but in the evening I frequently pop in to get some ring races in with Young Yif and Timmy Tryhard. I always see the same rotation of like maybe 50 people total, but for a free game, a small player base doesn't really matter much as long as there is a player base in the first place. Not only that, but there's pretty sizable competitive formats for the game, like the Honeypot tournaments or the Ring Racers Mogi Lounge. I don't have much experience with the former, but I've played quite a bit of Mogies, which is a Discord server set up with 12 race-long net games that count for MMR and stuff. I used to hate participating in these, but once I got a taste of placing in the upper half, I just got addicted to the shit. It genuinely feels fun to get better in, which is something I've never really experienced for any competitive game, even if I still do get my shit kicked in. Mogies also give me a deeper appreciation for the game's mechanics, and just how much of a piece of shit motherfucker you can be to people. And you know, this might be a crazy thing to say, but maybe the people who made the game also think the game is fun. There's something so self-indulgent about Ring Racers. It's a freak game made by and for evil perverts who are probably really unfun to play Mario Kart with, and I love that about it. Just like I was talking about with Sonic 1 Next Level, Ring Racers could only be made in the context in which it was, you know? Kart Crew's whole mantra has always been to not be afraid of changing shit up, and possibly even alienating players, which, not to get too deep into another history lesson, is somewhat of a direct counterculture to the old guard of Vanilla Serb 2's mantra, which was don't change anything unless you absolutely have to. Most people who really hate Ring Racers with all their heart were people who are really into Serb 2 Kart that wish it was more like the game that they like, even though they can still fucking play Serb 2 Kart, which they often do. Ring Racers isn't a replacement for Serb 2 Kart like many people seem to think it is. The master server is still up and you can still easily play it online. There's still a dedicated group of people that play the game just as much as Ring Racers. In the Kart section of the video, I kinda shove off Kart as merely a stepping stone to Ring Racers, but I need to reiterate now that it's definitely its own thing, and is worth getting into on its own merits. This video has maybe been a bit biased towards Ring Racers, but that's because I like Ring Racers. It's my video, fuck you. It's kind of funny though, cause you go on one of these Serb 2 Kart servers and they usually have a bunch of these gameplay changing add-ons, most of which add new mechanics to the game, so I guess we just end up right where we started in the complicated, hard to get into, fan-made Sonic Kart Racer territory, which some kart players claim to hate so much. I think that makes Serb 2 Kart kinda unique though, in a way that even Ring Racers isn't. Kart lives and dies by its modding scene. Nobody really gives a fuck about the vanilla gameplay anymore, in the same way no one is hopping on Mugen to do Kung Fu Man mirror matches. You play Serb 2 Kart for the modded characters and maps, and you also play it for all the gameplay mods. Serb 2 Kart players play this almost crowdsourced game that's Frankenstein together with a bunch of add-ons. Every kart server is like an entirely different game, and that's a kind of a magic that isn't even present in Ring Racers. Which isn't to either game's detriment, I think. Ring Racers is already a fully fledged video game, so there isn't much need to add shit to it, while Serb 2 Kart is kind of the skeleton of one. Serb 2 Kart is the skeleton of Ring Racers, let's make that clear, but it's interesting to see how people filled in that skeleton independently of the developer's intentions. It's like kart racing paleontology. That makes sense, right? It's hard to believe these two communities are constantly at each other's throats when they both like different iterations on the same idea. But I suppose that's how all great historical conflicts arise, so whatever. I guess the bottom line of this video is that You should give Ring Racers a shot. Don't listen to the circle jerking on either side and just play it for yourself and form your own damn opinions. You don't even have to be a Sonic fan to get into this game. I've seen tons of people in the Ring Racers community who are really only in it for the gameplay, which is kind of funny. There's honestly probably a good chance you'll bounce off of it if you don't have the right brain chemistry for it, but hey, at least you gave it a chance. On the off chance you do end up figuring it out, you'll be rewarded with one of the most rewarding, satisfying, adrenaline-pumping, and technical kart racers on the market. Except actually it isn't even on the market because it's a free fan game. I didn't even go super in depth with the unlockable stuff. There's a boatload of really cool secret stuff hiding away in this game's 200 plus maps. I have over 400 hours on this game since it came out, which might even be lowballing it. I was lying earlier, by the way. Most of the reason this video took so long to come out is because half the time I went to write the script, I just felt like playing Ring Racers instead. It was made with such care, such passion, such love, and more than anything else, a clear desire from the developers to just stop trying to appeal to anyone but themselves, and to just make something that kicks fucking ass. And yeah, it is a functional video game. That's the bonus. I love Ring Racers, warts and all, and of all the racing games I've ever played, it's easily my second favorite. What? I mean, it's no Burnout 3.
Little Big Planet. I have 2 suggestions on this one. Little Dick Planet or Little Dick Big Little Ball. Little Dick